following program is distributed by the Bears Barroom Radio Network. It's intended for all audiences. Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aldo Gandia, and before I bring in Danny and Niel, I want to set things up first. This, to me, is the ultimate fantasy football show because I am playing the general manager of the Chicago Bears, and Danny and Niel will play our scouts. Danny Shimon, our lead scout at the Bears Barroom, and now Niel Stopchinsky, who joined us a few months ago, have been studying tape for the last few months. We've already gone over top quarterback prospects. We've gone over edge players, and today we're going to tackle offensive linemen. But we're also going to talk about the status of the Chicago Bears, and that's primarily what we're going to be doing every week or every 2 weeks as we lead up into the 2021 NFL Draft. This is about discussing what the Chicago Bears are doing right, what they are doing wrong. Clearly, there's got a lot to talk about in that area. And then, but also trying to find solutions so that we don't experience again what we've been experiencing for the last 4 weeks and truly the entire season. Let me bring in Danny first. Danny Shimon, how are you? There you are.
Hello.
How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Aldo?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. We've got a lot to talk about.
Sure.
You know, we always kind of plan for a 1 hour show, but I got a feeling this is going to be a 2 hour show because we've got a lot to cover.
Right. And, we'll get into it later on in the show, as you mentioned, but, the group we're covering today, offensive tackles, is an area that the Bears are going to have, on top of, if not the priority, one of the top priorities on their shopping list this offseason. So we'll definitely get into these prospects here. This group that, is headlined by a couple of players, but, it doesn't have really the, in my opinion, at least the franchise left tackle yet. It's got potential, but it's got some decent solid depth throughout the class. So we can go through a couple of those names and hopefully when draft comes around, the Bears will be able to plop some of these guys on their roster because we sure do know they need them.
Absolutely. And and the irony is that this is the week that we're talking offensive tackles, and Charles Leno Jr. is going to be a guest on Sunday morning's Barfly Tailgate show. So
that's gonna be fun. It's a good listen.
Yeah, he's receiving the badge of honor for his work on charity, but he's also going to talk football with the guys. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. Let me introduce now Niel Stopczynski. Niel, how are you, brother?
Man, doing wonderful. I'm glad this Indian summer came back a little bit. I thought it was gone for good. You've got your significant other now is in town. How is she enjoying Chicago? Oh, man, she's loving it. She's basically been a local for the past couple years. Ever since I brought her up here on vacation, treat her to the local experience. She's wanted to be here and soaking it up. Started her new job this week, actually being, gainfully employed, so that's phenomenal. Has phenomenal stories about the L train so far, so we can almost start another podcast just based on that alone. So hey, maybe we might have a new show, Aldo. We might have a new show.
I love the idea. And by the way, Niel, you're no longer the rookie at Bears Barroom because Stacey King has now joined the Bears Barroom Radio Network, the Barroom Network, and so he's the newest kid on the block. So you're in good company. All the new people that we're bringing in are top notch. You and Stacey King, some of the best people in the business.
Man, can't get enough of that hot sauce, man. Love it.
I love it too. All right, guys, I want to begin our show by talking about the areas of concern that I've identified for the Chicago Bears and see where you're coming from and whether you agree with me or whether you want to add to the areas of concerns. I put together a graphic. Here are the 4 or 3 major areas of concerns that I have moving into the 2021 season. And this is, of course, based on what I am seeing in this 2020 season. Clearly, quarterback play is number one. We are not getting the production out of Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky that we expected. And of course, Tyler Bray is just a backup emergency quarterback. He's never going to be seriously considered for a starting job there. So let's begin there, guys. And I want to get your thoughts on the quarterback position. Danny, let me begin with you. How would you grade the quarterback position so far in 2020?
I mean, just to be a little bit nice, I'd say a D. I don't want to give it an F, but I'd give it a D.
You're an easy grader, Danny.
Well, Nick Foles had that nice comeback win in Atlanta, so I'll give him credit for that. And collectively they did start off 5-0, even though some were not believers in the team. I think obviously the group as a whole, there's got to be a house cleaning after this season. I think the hopes and dreams that Matt Nagy and the front office have put on Nick Foles, I think those are all come to roost here in terms of, we've seen what Nick Foles is. He's a really good backup quarterback. He caught lightning in a bottle with the Eagles, and he had, a run that was magical, if you will. But bringing him back into the system in which he was supposed to be familiar with, it has been nothing but sort of a disaster. Now, is it all on Nick Foles? No, just like it wasn't all on Mitch Trubisky. However, the quarterback is probably the most important position on the football field. And until you get that right as an organization, you're always going to find yourself with those 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 records. That position is the prime position that you have to get corrected, and then corrected right away, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think at one point, in one of our first shows, I talked about how Nick Foles was probably the best, insurance policy we've taken up at the quarterback position since I've been alive. But that's exactly what he is. He's an insurance policy. He's not a starter.
Plus expired.
Right. He's not meant to start more than 2 games. He's meant to come in, be the lightning in the bottle guy, and relieve the starter if he's having a crap game. I mean, I think at this point, it's pretty clear we need to have a guy back there that has mobility. And I know we had our druthers with Mitch. We had our issues. If he's healthy, he needs to be back there right now because he's the guy that can make things happen with his legs. He can do the things that Nick Foles can't. Let's just go ahead and be honest about it right now. With the patchwork offensive line that we have right now, held together with duct tape and Gorilla Glue, we need to have Mitch back there if he's healthy because he can at least go ahead and do things with his legs. I know there's been talk about Deshaun Kaiser coming in the room. We're not sure where that is right now, but he's another guy that, historically he's been decent with his legs. Mm-hmm. He can make some plays happen. He can give you a chance. Certainly not saying he's the answer. 100% not saying he's the answer. And, when it comes to Nick, love him. Sure, he's a great guy. The way the old offensive line is constructed currently is not conducive for a drop back quarterback to be taking snaps. Certainly not from under center like we have been doing with him.
But the one thing, just real quick on that one, Neil, is I agree that a mobile quarterback like Trubisky would do well behind this patchwork offensive line they have going. However, just let's not forget when Trubisky was playing, defenses, what they were doing is they were saying, you know what, keep Trubisky in the pocket and let him work the pocket from the pocket and see if he can do it, because they know, defensive coordinators, defensive players on opposing NFL teams know that Mitch's problem are not from the neck down, it's from the neck up. He can't
Correct.
Process quick enough in the pocket. He gets, nervous or whatnot. He goes first read and second read, maybe third read. Sometimes even doesn't go that far and just looks to, go ahead and throw the ball up and, in traffic and in harm's way. The thing about Foles is I think if you give him protection, you give him a solid offensive line. The thing that's really surprised me with Foles is he does not step up in the pocket. He's always fading back and rolling away from and I just know if he's just, scared because he's been hit so many times. He doesn't trust those guys up front. That's why when Daniels got hurt, and I think he was probably the best offensive lineman the Bears had this season in terms of consistency throughout the the early part of the season. When he went down and then Whitehair went down, that middle, that interior, and Ifedi, we know why the Seahawks give up on Ifedi now. He's a guy that's got some nice traits in terms of size and power, but he just doesn't cut it in terms of being an every down starter. So once that middle went, those 3 guys inside the middle were just giving up all that pressure. I think Foles then started retreating, started not stepping up in the pocket, losing that confidence to look downfield. And I think that's what really hurt him and hurt the Bears. But with Trubisky, I agree. He gives you that aspect of being able to use his legs to get away from pressure. But defenses are going to adjust. They're going to say, you know what? You're saying, Mitch, prove it back to us. Get in that pocket. We're not going to let you get out of the pocket. Beat us with your arm and your head. And Trubisky has shown he has not been able to do that.
Yeah, we can get back to 2018 Mitch, where he actually was using his legs more often than he has the past couple of years. It's going to keep defenses a hell of a lot more honest.
And that's the one thing we have to consider too. That's a good point because now we have a new play caller will Bill Lazor use him in a way that Nagy would refuse to use him? And that's, rolling out and using some of those bootleg, play action, all that stuff. So 100%. We'll see how that, but in order for play action to work, you got to be able to block it up front. You got to be able to run the ball. So defensive players can actually think you're actually going to run the ball, not just, fake hand it off and play action and get back there. So like I said, there's a lot of problems on this offense. Last week, I think it started off, kind of good. It was a little positive. The Whitehair was back. I think the offensive line, the first couple of series was holding up, was looking pretty solid. There was some new creativity, some wrinkles in the play calling with Bill Lazor, and then all of a sudden, the second quarter and the third quarter, it was like, what's going on? It's like my eyes started to hurt. I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. It's how bad it was, and the fact that Zimmer just totally out-schemed and totally confused the hell out of not only the quarterbacks, but also the Lazor and Matt Nagy, because they couldn't adjust, because they were coming down pre-snap looking like they were going to be in zone, and next thing you know, they're switching to man and vice versa. And I think that just had Nick Foles all confused, of course, and then the pass rush got to Nick Foles, and the rest is history.
I've got a couple of video clips of Nick Foles, and this is the kind of stuff that is just irritating to watch, because Nick came to the Chicago Bears with the reputation of being really good under pressure and having poise. But because, as you said, Danny, we are seeing that he is perhaps gun shy. He is not feeling comfortable in the pocket or really at any place behind the line of scrimmage because of the pass rush. So there's been in the last game, there were a lot of max protection plays called. And on this play here, you see Nick not only gets max protect, but they roll him out of the pocket, and he does a really sensational job throwing a good ball to Allen Robinson for the catch.
That was a hell of a throw. That's an NFL type throw right there.
But here is where I have a problem. Take a look now at what the decision that he makes is not the best one. He rolls back, and it's the rookie wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, wide open over the middle. Right. This is where the ball should go. He has a prescribed thought in his mind that he's going to hit Allen Robinson, and he's not looking downfield. Right. There's only two receivers downfield for him to make a choice, and he picks the wrong run. He picks the guy where there's three guys around them. There's three men around them, as opposed to the guy who is wide open down the middle of the field for an easy touchdown. This is just irritating as hell.
Right, because right there, that's a big play right there for a touchdown, and that could be a big-time momentum swinger. You could tie a game instead of going down and getting a field goal. First of all, that is a great throw. Second of all, the only thing I can attribute it to, and we know Nick Foles is a veteran. We know Nick Foles has be able to process, can go through a progression. The only thing I can think of is, man, I see Allen Robinson open for a split second. I'm going to get rid of the football real quick because I don't know how much time I got left back here in the pocket. That's the only thing I can guess as to why he was doing it back there in terms of why he got rid of the ball. Didn't go to his next progression.
Let me show you another one. This is a 3rd and 5 in the red zone. This was a huge miss for a touchdown, and so we can discuss this. I put this up
across the middle. Yep.
Right. So you got Kendricks coming in on the blitz. Right. Again, Foles has already decided he's going to go to the corner of the end zone. He should know that because Kendricks is coming in on this blitz, that he's got Darnell Mooney going towards the middle of the field and filling in that open blitz area. So he misses a great opportunity there for another touchdown, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. I saw that on the actual game footage, live. I'm like, oh, he missed Mooney right in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. He just predetermined where he was going to go with the football. Probably didn't think he had enough time to go ahead and get rid of the ball, so he just goes for his number one option, which is not good for a veteran quarterback.
You can make the argument again that because the pass rush, and in this case, Rashard Coward makes the wrong decision here. He picks up the outside blitzer as opposed to the defensive tackle who he should have picked up, that Foles panicked and threw the ball. But he's a veteran. These are the things that Mitch Trubisky was doing wrong, and here's a veteran doing the same things. It's very, very frustrating, guys.
He's got to think so much about he's got worries so much about his offensive line that his thought process pre-snap is 100%. I got to get rid of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that throw? He didn't even follow through. He just kind of flicked it out there.
Yep. There's tons and tons of examples of him throwing off his back foot, not having the courage. And really, I think correct me, guys, if I'm using the wrong word, but not having the courage to step into the throw and take the hit. This is why these guys make millions of dollars, because they're got to sacrifice their body to make the big play. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. And that's one of the things we look at when we grade quarterbacks is their toughness, their competitive toughness. Is he able to stand in the pocket, looking at a linebacker or a blitzing safety coming down at him, standing there and still, deliver an accurate, ball downfield. And right now, Foles is just either, like I said, retreating, missing reads, or just flinging the ball up there and hoping someone comes down and makes a play with it. So, it just looks bad. And like I said, I understand that it's not all on him in terms of, the offensive line's got to give him some time to, in terms of protection, all that stuff. But even earlier, if you was another clip earlier in the game when we talked about the first quarter, where the offensive line kind of came out and they're with Alex Barrs at guard and Whitehair back at center, it looked like they're first couple of series that they're holding up the pass rusher, forming a little pocket, and he throws the ball to Anthony Miller wide open in the middle of the field, throws it behind him. Well, Miller has to stretch. Now he's got his hands on the ball. Right. That's a tough catch in the middle of the field to go ahead and make. So some people I know were blaming Miller for making, dropping that ball, but I think that's all on the quarterback there. You got to throw the ball, lead a receiver away from coverage and hit him in stride. And I think if that's another big play right there that they could have had. Again, you put these big plays back to back to back, and next thing you know, Minnesota could be reeling, and you could have a lead there.
I think it's safe to say that not all of us here are fans of Matt Nagy and his play calling, but I think that the biggest problem we're seeing with this team is the lack of execution. And now you can perhaps blame that on the coaching. Is the coaching doing a good job at instilling, these basics, these fundamentals into the guys and getting them ready to play and getting them psyched up to make these plays? That's a whole nother area of discussion. We'll talk about that at a later point. My second area of concern, and we'll be addressing it today, is the offensive line. We'll be specifically talking about offensive tackles today, but we've got Charles Leno Jr., who I don't think is as bad as most fans make him out to be. He's probably in that kind of 15th, 16th, 17th best offensive lineman in the NFL. There just aren't a lot of good offensive tackles in the NFL. And then Bobby Massey, who is perhaps going to be a cap casualty next year. He is scheduled to make about $6-7 million. And because the salary cap is what it is, we're anticipating that Bobby Massey will probably be released. And Danny mentioned again, Jermaine Ifedi, the right guard who was picked up from the Seahawks. He had a couple of good first games, but clearly it looks like he's not the long-term solution. Neil, you kind of agree with my assessment there of what's going on with the offensive line?
Yeah, I don't think Leno is complete garbage. I mean, we tagged him as an average offensive tackle from the very beginning, the very first show, and that's exactly what he is. He got himself a nice paycheck, which is fine. He held his own for as long as he's been in that position. He's been a good soldier. And I mean, you talk about what he does on the field as far as his character. I mean, he's a great dude too. We talked about, all the things that, he's doing off the field as well. But as far as the guy on the field, he's an average guy that is a good soldier and fights his ass off, and he has to. I think that Jermaine Ifedi, he's a guy that has cement block feet. And there's a reason why Seattle lets go of a high draft pick like that. They're a very good evaluational outfit, and you take a guy that high and just go ahead and let him go. That is what that is. Not very happy with Ifedi. I think that offensive line in general, they did a good job in the very first couple of weeks when they were 100% healthy of giving really Mitch and Foles, but mainly Mitch, enough time to be able to do what he can do with the time allotted. But we just need to do better all around. Pace needs to do better. We need to do better in the springtime, and that's going to start with the guys that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the offensive line, I mean that was my priority going into the last draft, last April. I was like, this is an area that's going to be top priority, and they don't end up drafting an offensive lineman until the 7th round. The last two picks with Simmons and Albright. So it's that was disappointing for me. And then they go in and bring in, Jason Spriggs, who's a second round bust with the Packers, a guy who's never been able to, to resurrect his career, or never, live up to his potential as a second round pick. Always been injured and when he's been healthy, he's been ineffective. And then they bring in a Fetty, we've already talked about. So I think for sure next year you got to have a new right side of the offensive line. You're gonna have a new right guard. You have a new right tackle. Whether you bring a tackle in from the draft, or you sign a veteran, or you do the vice versa, bring a guard in from the draft and sign a veteran tackle, that is definitely going to be an area where you gotta bump up. And like I said, with Whitehair back at center, with James Daniels, who I think was having his a really good season this year before he got hurt at left guard. And I think Leno, again, I agree with you guys. Leno is not great. He's not a franchise left tackle, and we all know that. But he's a guy that's serviceable. He's a serviceable left tackle that, if your other four guys on your offensive line are solid or good, you can live with him. But when the other guys are all horrible and are getting beat, then his issues come up as well. So, but again, I think for sure that they're going to bring in, 2 to 3 offensive linemen, probably two draft picks and a veteran or whatever, however you want to fix it or however you want to set it up. It's got to be at least 3 offensive linemen that you got to bring in, two starters and at least another good solid backup.
I can't wait to hear what solutions you guys have for the offensive line position, and we're going to address those in just a few minutes. But first, I want to get back to my third area of concern and see what you guys think. I'm concerned about the wide receiver position. Allen Robinson, of course, is a major talent, and he deserves the kind of contract that I think his agent Brandon Parker is asking for, which is a low tier 1, high tier 2 type deal. But we'll see what happens there. But there is the possibility, because of the reduced salary cap next year, that the Bears might not even franchise tag him. They may, let him go. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but there are some concerns there. But beyond that, the rest of the wide receiver group, with the exception of the rookie Darnell Mooney, has looked iffy. The Anthony Miller draft selection, moving into the second round to select Miller, is now starting to raise some eyebrows. Should we have done that, given the type of production we've seen so far out of Miller and the fact that he is not perhaps running his routes the way the team wants him to? That seems to be almost a weekly mention in press conferences, either by the head coach or Nick Foles, the quarterback. And then there's the story of Ridley, the 4th round draft pick, who has rarely seen the football field and is now seeing some action because of injury. But what has taken so long to get him out there to see some action? Danny, your thoughts on the wide receiver position?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Allen Robinson, I echo your sentiments on him. Guys obviously proved me wrong, because I was a little skeptical in terms of when they went out there and got him, because he had only really one great year with Jacksonville, and he was coming off the ACL and all that stuff. But I take it back. He's definitely a stud receiver. Anthony Miller is a guy that as you remember, Aldo, I was high on coming out of Memphis. He's a guy that I banged pounded the table for. I wanted the Bears to get him, and I was excited when they got him. And I think that the kid has gotten a raw deal. He came on the scene here, had 7 touchdowns in his rookie season. That's Trubisky's first year, and then Nagy's first year, and then in this Nagy system, I should say. And then ever since then, all of a sudden he can't run routes. So if he's having a problem running routes, are you telling me that he doesn't know how to run routes, or are you telling me you can't? Your receiver coach, Mike Fury, is not doing a good job of coaching him up. So that's what I want to know. Because we saw the talent he's got on those punt returns last week. You saw with his ability to get the ball in his hands, how he's got the shiftiness, the quick short area burst where he can get make guys miss in the open field and make big plays. Get the ball in his hands in a position where he can succeed. Always every week we hear about him running wrong routes. You know what? That route that he ran, that he was wide open down the seam, that Nick Foles overthrew him, that seemed like a good route to me. All you got to do is have a quarterback hit him in stride, and that's a touchdown. And there's a couple of times, other examples this season where we've seen Miller, be wide open. There's the earlier pass I was talking about earlier in the first quarter where Nick Foles throws it, high and behind him. You hit him in stride. That's another big gainer right there. So is the receiver running the wrong routes, or are you just not criticizing your quarterback, making the proper throws and throwing it to a spot where the receiver can go ahead and have some success, catching the ball and making plays after the catch? He's not a big bodied guy. He's not a guy that's going to go up in traffic and make contested jump ball catches, although we've seen a couple of examples where he has done that. But he's a tough guy. He's a guy that's elusive in the open field. He's got that, like the burst, that shiftiness to be able to make you miss, as evident on those punt returns. He's a guy that's got talent. It's just a way of having this coaching staff find a way to utilize him and his talents. I bet you, if he goes plays for the Chiefs, I bet you're going to be like, oh my God, where did this guy come from? He's a guy that's going to be utilized in the correct way. So I think it's a thing where they're not utilizing the kid and not utilizing his talents in the proper aspect. Ridley, again, I'm with you, Aldo. Why is he not playing on a more consistent basis? Cordero Patterson had a nice kickoff return for a touchdown last week, but that's what he should be doing. Just kickoff returns. I don't want to see him on offense anymore. I don't want to see him in the backfield. I don't want to see him running routes. You have a couple of plays you can bring him in here and there just for kind of deceive the defense and kind of throw him off the hook there and all that stuff. That's fine. You can do that. Bring in a couple of packages, but bring in Ridley. Javon Wims. I know he's back from suspension, but is he done with the team? If so, let's see Ridley. Let's see what he can do. At least he's got some height. He's a guy that at Georgia ran some nice, clean, crisp routes, especially for a bigger guy. Not a blazer, not a guy that's going to run by people, but he's a guy that can go up there and make those contested catches that we were talking about. The guy, like I said, at Georgia ran some nice, clean routes, so I think his route running should be okay. But you know what? Let's see him do it. Put him out there. What do you got to lose? It's not like you're scoring all these points on. You don't want get the lack of production out there. Put him out there and see what happens. So, for me, it's just it goes back to play calling, utilizing the players and their strengths, and also then coaching. Being able to get the best out of your player.
Players, formations, plays, right, guys?
Yeah.
Take the personnel, put them in formation, call some plays. Get the guys out there that can make it happen. To me, there's three that need to be out there to build a passing game around that can get things done, that need to get things done. That's Kmet, Robinson, and Mooney. Those are three guys that have consistently performed when the ball has been thrown their way. Robinson's a big-time playmaker. Mooney has been unbelievably reliable as a rookie. And then Cole Kmet, we need to target that guy more. What are we doing? Those are the three, though. I've lost faith in Anthony Miller. I was with you, Danny. I was really high on that kid coming out of Memphis. I was vocal about how I felt like that was a really nice little coup d'etat on our part, going ahead and drafting up or trading up to get that kid. But he's dropped way too many balls. At times he can run a good route. At times he can't. You can't count on him to run the same route cleanly every single time. With Ridley, I love to see, but for some reason we're not. What is the deal with Ridley? Don't know what to think about his development. And that's a big question. Is it just these guys are just not developing? Is it a wide receiver coach problem? Is it just a general offense problem? Is it a Nagy problem? I think there's so many damn questions with this wide receiver room, and 100% with you on Patterson too. We need to stop being so cute with Patterson. Stop treating him like he's Red Grange or Gale Sayers and putting him all over the field and just giving him the ball at will. It's clear that it was like a little bit of an experimental period. It hasn't worked. Get the ball to three guys in the passing game, and then the other, the couple tailbacks that we have that have shown that they can make things happen in the running game. And just let's move forward, man. Stop playing around.
With Miller, in terms of drop cat, I see him had a couple of drops here and there, but in terms of like the last week that throw down the middle, I don't put that in Miller. I put it on the quarterback. He was open.
No, it's not on Miller at all.
Yeah.
I didn't put that on Miller. Absolutely not.
So like when people say he drops passes, he's not. He doesn't have a problem with dropping passes. He's a guy. That's a guy that makes catches. Is the problem just getting the ball to him? There's many times, especially when Trubisky was playing last year. It's like I'd see him at all 22s. He's wide open. He's running his routes, but Trubisky doesn't look his way. And I don't know if I didn't think that was going to happen with Foles. But I just don't see them looking his way.
Yeah, Foles has said, he's been complimentary about Anthony Miller in press conferences, but he's also said he needs to be there. He needs to be where he should be. And so that clearly he was talking about the fact that sometimes he'll run a pass route and he's not in the spot that Foles expects him to be. That one play over the middle, we don't know for sure. Perhaps Foles expected him to stop his route there, and instead Anthony Miller kept going because he felt that defensive back on his hip and kept going. And so perhaps that's why that ball ended up behind him, and Anthony Miller got a hand on it, and then it was intercepted by Harrison Smith. So there clearly is some communication issues. There clearly is some a lack of connectivity going on between the quarterback and the wide receivers. And the troubling thing is that it's been happening not just recently, it's been happening since Matt Nagy has been the head coach of this team. So clearly the coaching part of it has to be questioned as well. Now let's get to my other areas of concern. Defensive line. We are seeing now Robertson Harris, who is out for the season. He's a free agent, and he's probably going to get a lot of interest because he is a physical specimen, and he's got so much potential. We have not seen that potential manifest itself into that kind of superstar player some people have kind of predicted for him, but nonetheless, if he does leave via free agency, that's going to be a tremendous loss for this defensive line. The edge position is a concern. Robert Quinn has not lived up to expectations. The linebackers coach this week met the media, and he himself said, we judge that position by the numbers, and Robert Quinn is not getting the numbers. That's a huge public indictment of the veteran. The inside linebackers position, we saw Danny Trevathan get off to a slow start at the beginning of the year. I think the guys will agree with me that he's been playing better, but he's not getting any younger. Roquan Smith is playing at a Pro Bowl level. He sometimes makes mistakes, but he's still a generational type talent at that linebacker position, in my opinion. And then the tight end position. Jimmy Graham is probably playing his last season with the Chicago Bears, his first and only season. He will probably be gone for cap purposes. And so we're going to need to bring in some tight ends in 2021 to replace Cole Kmet. Guys, and Neil, I'll begin with you. What do you think about my assessment there on these other areas, defensive line, edge, inside linebackers, and tight end?
Yeah, my thoughts on the defensive line is it's just depth deprived. You know, you look at Roy Robinson Jr., he's hurt. Golson is, he's out, opted out for the year. Mario Edwards is a pass rush role player. Bilal Nichols is okay. Brent Urban's a nice role player. I sometimes even think that Mario Edwards should be the full-time starter at defensive end. I don't know, but I mean, Roy has been another one of those good soldier type of guys that probably hasn't lived up to the hype and everything else. But Mario has been he's been disrupting the backfield all year, and I mean, let's be honest about keeping Akeem Hicks healthy. I mean, he's the anchor obviously, and we saw before what happens when he goes down. I mean, the defense just goes in the tank. Outside linebacker wise, obviously Mac is Mac, Quinn is not. I'm starting to wonder, rethink the whole Leonard Floyd thing just a little bit, to be honest with you. But how about Mingo breaking out as a threat at running back this month? Amazing stuff there. Who would have thought? But he has actually at the outside linebacker position been a really pleasant surprise. I've liked everything that he's done. A lot of things that he's done the past few weeks, just coming in, getting some snaps, doing some good things, putting some pressure in the backfield. Getting his hands up in the air, disrupting passing lanes. I mean, he's a guy that, I mean, to me, coming from the SEC was always kind of a, maybe not solely a flash in the pan guy, but he was length and athletic ability and explosion, and never really anything that was like technically sound or any of those types of things. Inside linebacker, although I'm 100% on board with you. I love Roquan. Danny has stepped it up the past couple weeks, made some sort of vintage, Trevathan. Plays lately. It's an interesting position where, we have a solution at one of those positions and a placeholder at the other. It needs a solution come draft weekend. Tight end wise, I skipped over that for a second, but tight end wise, obviously Jimmy, he's a red zone threat at this point in his career. And, that's what he is. He's a damn good role player at just being a red zone threat. Cole Kmet's the dude. And we need to really start, really start, focusing a little bit more of the passing game around Cole Kmet. Jimmy Graham's going to be that guy in the red zone. Cole Kmet's the guy. The other guy, I mean, when you really need to see him on the field, get Cole as the main guy going forward. Maybe find a role player behind him. And like I said in the last segment, Cole, Robinson, Mooney, those are the three guys the passing game needs to be centered around, in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of the list, Aldo, I agree with you in terms of the defensive line. Another position that I was screaming for prior to last year's draft. I said, you guys, the depth behind Eddie Goldman is not there, and if Eddie Goldman goes down, you're in trouble. And lo and behold, Goldman opts out for this season, and now they're scrambling. John Jenkins has been okay when he's been in there. But he's also, been injured, and he's a guy that, really is, he's okay. This run defense without Goldman in there, and especially without Hicks in there, is horrible. I mean, we saw last week where, with Hicks playing, even next to guys like John Jenkins and Mario Edwards, and they were able to bottle up Dalvin Cook, who was coming into that game on fire in terms of the amounts of yards he was racking up the previous weeks. But they tied him up, and he couldn't do anything. But lo and behold, Hicks gets hurt, and next thing you know, his biggest runs, Cooks, come when Hicks is out of the game. So, but yeah, defensive line, I think, especially with the departure or potential departure of Robert Harrison, and then also Mario Edwards is a one year contract. So he's a guy that's also going to be a free agent and could leave as well. So depth there. Assuming Goldman comes back next year, plugging in a starter next to Goldman and opposite of Hicks is going to be a priority. And then again, depth behind those guys. Inside linebacker as another position I was barking about prior to the draft. Thank God for Walker Smith, because he's playing all pro right now. He's living up to the bill of being the 8th overall pick, and he's a guy that's a kid I saw coming out of Georgia. I don't know what happened last year with that brief, where he missed a couple of games and whatnot. I'm not sure what was going on there. But this is the kid we saw coming out of Georgia. This is the kid we drafted 8th overall, and this is the kid that's going to make the Pro Bowl this year. Danny Trevathan, I agree with you, although has looked better these last couple of weeks. So I'm not sure if it was just a lack of OTAs, a lack of a real training camp for him, just trying to get back into the groove of things, or maybe he was dealing with an injury that we don't know about. So, but he looked better. But the depth behind them, I mean, we have unproven guys. We have Josh Woods, who's a friend of the network, obviously, and then we have Iggy, who still is just a special teams guy. So that's a key area. God forbid one of those two starters goes down, then we're really going to be hurting. Edge rusher, I think they're not going to go out there. Robert Quinn is killing him right now. They spend that guaranteed money on him. They put so much money at the outside linebacker between Quinn and Mack. And, besides Khalil with 6.5 sacks, Quinn's got 1 sack. They're not getting the production that they need out of there. I think Mingo's been a surprise in terms of his ability to come in and be a situational kind of guy, give you a pass rush, give the guys a breather here and there. But I think you need depth. Tre'Vez Gibson, a 5th-round pick out of Tulsa, has not been seen in the field. What's up with that? We talked about Ridley not seeing the field. We talked about some of these other younger guys not developing. Why can't we see Gibson play out there? You're not getting production from the other guys, really. I mean, James Waters gives you some effort, but that's about it. Maybe see what Gibson gives you. One other position, though, I will put up there that you did not, and that I have a concern going in, is safety. Tashawn Gibson started off okay, but he's been missing tackles. He's a guy that I think is limited in coverage. We knew that coming in, but he was a guy that was going to be that Adrian Amos, if you will, to Eddie Jackson. The guy's going to be able to come downhill, be a sure tackler, open field, wrap up tackler. That play against the Rams where he could have had an interception and taken it in possibly for a pick 6, and he just knocks the ball down. That was putrid in my opinion. He's missed some tackles. So that's a safe, and again, he's only on a 1-year contract too. So Deion Bush, we've seen him play some special teams. We've seen him start here and there. Is he a backup? Is he a guy that's starter potential at this point? I'm thinking he's more depth backup guy. So that's another position that we're gonna have to attack in terms of safety too. So other than cornerback and kicker, is that the only position we haven't put up or talked about?
That's that kicker now, all right, with Pinheiro backing up.
Cairo, yeah.
Hey, I want to get Neil's opinion on the safety position, because I don't think that Gibson has been as bad as Danny just made it seem to be. And in fact, it's been Eddie Jackson that has made more boneheaded plays, missing tackles and getting late over on coverage on a couple of big plays. Not to say that Eddie Jackson has been a disappointment. He still does more great things than he does boneheaded things, but he has. And in fact, the last game, there were a couple of bad plays, one a missed tackle and one where he got over late on a touchdown pass. Neil, what do you think about overall the safety position, and should I add that into my list of areas of concern?
No, I think you absolutely have to. I mean, the Eddie Jackson thing is his whole inability to tackle is starting to compound like interest right now. He missed that one this past weekend that led to an explosion play. Conversely, he made another amazing tackle that prevented an explosion play. So it's kind of like, you go back and forth on Eddie sometimes, but Eddie, when it comes down to ball skills, that's the Eddie that I love. When it comes down to Eddie being physical, coming downhill, making a tackle, attacking the ball, it kind of drives me crazy.
That's not his game, though. That's not his game.
No, I understand
He's a ball hawking guy.
But
no,
he
I understand
have to do both of those things.
However, if you're in position to make a tackle, make the tackle.
Right.
I know he's not Ronnie Lott. I'm not trying to say he's John Lynch.
When he excelled, when Amos was with him, Amos, and again, it was Vic Fangio's system, so it's a total different defensive coordinator. But Amos was the guy up near the line of scrimmage. Amos was a sure tackler. He was a guy in the open field to wrap guys down and bring them down. And Eddie was back there being the ball hog, being the free safety, getting over late on a throw. That's not excusable. Now, that's his position. He's got to go over and give that over the top help. Mm-hmm. But I think him being, and I'm with you guys. I'm frustrated with him coming in with shoulder tackles. He's got to come in and wrap up. But that never was his game coming out of Alabama. Remember, this guy was a corner starting out his career in college. So this guy's not a guy that's going to be a downhill physical thumper safety type. He's going to be a guy like we've seen before. A ball hawking free safety, the guy is going to make plays on the ball. He made a terrific play on the ball to break up the pass. I think it was Tennessee, or it might have been the Minnesota game. I forgot. But his ability to come in and play the ball and be a ball hawking safety is still there. If we're asking him to be the dominant downhill thumper safety, he's not going to be that kind of guy. Now, should he make tackles where he needs to? He's the last guy, of course. That's why you call safety. You're the last guy back there. Expecting him to be at physical presence in the middle of the field, that's not his game.
No, I've never been expecting him to be a physical presence. That's exactly not what I'm saying. He's got to be in position to make a tackle when he's the last line of defense, and that's the only thing I'm touching on. And I never thought I was going to miss Adrian Amos as much as I do. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't felt 100% comfortable and easy about the safety position since he was back there. Well, when he left, I was like, "Oh, well, we're going to find another guy, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be." No, it's been like this ever since he left.
Yeah, I've got to say that I had him high on my priority list for re-signing because finally we had a safety duel that was working. We had Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson, two complementary safeties, each with their own area of strengths. And why not continue to have that combo for the next 5-7 years? And why let him go and now have Eddie Jackson get used to a new safety, Clinton Dix, and then the following year, you can't continue this 1-year rental of safeties. That's not helping Eddie Jackson. And to the point that's being made about Eddie Jackson is Chuck Pagano wants safeties that are interchangeable. And that's the trend now in the NFL, that you have safeties that can play the center field position and can play inside the box. Well, unfortunately, that's not what Eddie Jackson's strength is. He doesn't have that versatility. And so while there may have been a level of predictability with Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson working together, it was still very complimentary football for those two guys to have that tandem. And so I'm disappointed that he was not re-signed.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it. The saying goes, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? So we didn't appreciate him as much as we probably should have. But another player that I secondary player that I don't want to see play anymore is Buster Screen. And I know I'm in the minority. He's a guy that consistently gets burned. Now, I keep seeing on Twitter, he's always in great position. He might be in position, but you got to turn your damn head and make a play on the damn ball. I'm tired of him being in position and having the ball come whizzing by his head and for a touchdown to the receiver's arms. Turn your head, make a damn play on the ball. He's always playing in a trail technique, and he's not fast and quick enough to be able to catch up to these receivers. And Bryce Callahan leaving to the Broncos, I understand that part. It was a money thing, and plus the guy was always injured, but he was a hell of a nickel corner. And bringing in Buster Screen, to me, he's been another free agent bust. If they bench him for one of the younger guys, whether it's Duke Shelley or Kendall Vilder, you know what? Let's see what we got. Because at this point, for me, I'm tired of seeing Buster Screen on the field.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm going to echo that as loud as I can possibly echo that. Buster Screen, how many big plays has he given up in the past few weeks? I mean, just this year alone. I mean, it's unbelievable. But Here's where we are. I think honestly, in all honesty, Sheriff McManus is probably that guy that executed that nickel spot the best, over the past few years. And he's been up and down with injuries.
Bryce Callen was one of the better, or the top nickel corner in the NFL. McManus had a filled in admirably for Callen when he got hurt. No doubt he's better than freaking what's his name.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately with McManus, he's always injured. It's a hamstring or it's a pull here and there, and they love him on special teams. They miss him on special teams when he's out. So I think they just want to keep him there and just not, make sure to kind of have him week in and week out and not use him on defense. But, you drafted Kendall Wilder, you have Duke Shelley from last year. Put those kids in, man. They can't be any worse, in my opinion. They can't be any worse.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Great discussion about what the areas of concerns are for these Chicago Bears moving into the 2021 season. And again, every team is doing this. They're having these kinds of discussions right now. They're looking forward. They've got their salary cap professionals figuring out who they can fit in, who is probably going to be a loss. There are lists on the team. Steven said that the Buster Screen is going to be a salary cap casualty next season, and he's absolutely right. He will not be on this team next season because the salary cap right now, the floor is at $172 million. The cap for the Chicago Bears is already about $20 million above that. So there are going to be some players who are going to be gone because already the Bears are over the cap. And so guys like Buster Screen are going to be gone, and we're going to probably see some contracts redone, like Eddie Jackson's contract. You'll probably see
Robert Quinn's contract redone probably.
I'm sorry?
Robert Quinn's contract probably redone.
Let's hope.
Has to be.
Let's hope. And we're stuck with the guy. He's got guaranteed dollars. So unless, something dramatic happens, he's going to be playing with the Bears in 2021. And just while we're on that topic, part of the problem with Robert Quinn, I believe, and you guys should tell me, is that he has excelled as a 4-3 defensive end. And because there was no camp for him, there was no camp for everybody, but there was no camp for him. He was injured throughout camp. He didn't get an opportunity to go out on the practice field and play in that kind of hybrid 4-3 outside linebacker position that Chuck Pagano's defense has for him. I actually went back and listened to Robert Quinn's first press conference with the Chicago Bears, and Quinn said, I've got a period of adjustment to do. Chuck Pagano is not going to change his defense for me. I've got to change my style of play to accommodate what Chuck Pagano wants out of me. And so I've been talking to the veterans. He says, I've even been talking to some of the younger players because they've been involved in this defense more than I have. So clearly he's having adjustment problems, or he still is suffering the effects of the injury that he had, or all of the above. So my hope is that Robert Quinn in 2021 is going to be playing at a better level than we've seen in 2020.
I would agree with you, except the fact that there are numerous times where he's rushing with his hand in the ground as a hand in the ground defensive end for all purposes, but he still can't get there. So I think it's either he came in not in good enough shape to be prepared for the season, or that obviously we knew he had ankle surgery and that injury really kind of slowed him down. So that's my thing. And plus he's playing on, most of his games are on grass. I mean, I think he excels more when he's on turf. And we saw last year, with the Cowboys, he had plays on turf. When he had a couple of big years with the Rams, when they were indoors, he was playing on the turf. So I think he's a guy that excels on artificial turf. Gets that get off, gets a better grip, footing, whatever, feels more comfortable, whatever you want to say. But I'm with you, Aldo. I hope just the injury, just a guy that came in, got a big contract, just wasn't ready, prepared, which is disappointing, to be honest with you. But hopefully, next season, or 6 games left in this season, maybe he bounces back and he puts something together. But that's been killing us. And to see Leonard Floyd become Defensive Player of the Week last week with 3 sacks in a game, that was a little salt in the wounds there.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And, this is a contract year for him, so right. He's probably fired up, and he's got a supporting cast out there that's perhaps, suits his skills, but he had a pretty good supporting cast here too, playing opposite edge position from Khalil Mack. Should have given him better numbers. But it is what it is.
Real question. I know we're kind of running over time, but real question. So Leonard Floyd goes to LA and he's having a good year. Adam Shaheen goes to Miami and he got a contract extension. So is it Ryan Pace picking bad players, or is it the coaching staff not developing these players or using them in the right way?
Right. That's a great question.
Exactly.
Neil, you got a thought on that?
I was thinking the exact same thing as I was watching these guys make plays over the past few weeks, man. We had this first show where half the first show was talking about how Ryan Pace made bad picks, and here these guys are making plays.
Yep.
What are we doing? I don't know, man. You look at guys like Ridley not on the field. We talk ad nauseum about these guys that we take as draft picks that aren't getting time on the field. I mean, I think you got to look at player development at this point. Where is that at?
And at this point, I'm wondering if like you guys are talking about Anthony Miller, if they let go of Anthony Miller, for example, I think he's going to go somewhere else and he's going to excel. And I think there's going to be another player we're going to be like, man, we had this guy here with the Bears. I just, for me right now, a lot of questions are not necessarily at Matt Nagy, the head coach, but it's at Matt Nagy putting his guys in a proper position to succeed, and his coaching staff developing those players. That's what I want to see. Now, I know he cleared out like 4 or 5 coaches on his offensive staff last offseason. So, but the receiver coach is still there. He's a guy that, has he taken any receivers and made them into better players? I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. That is a huge area of concern that has to be addressed. And, well, look at the offensive line coaches that Matt Nagy has had. Harry Houston comes with a tremendous reputation. He developed players at Notre Dame who have come into the NFL ready, the plug and play players, highly regarded, and yet he didn't work out. Juan Castillo now, it looked like after the first couple of games that some of the work that he did with the squad of offensive linemen was paying off. But since then, and injuries clearly have played a role in that, but since then, the offensive linemen, there's been some serious communication issues. Right. And isn't it a coach's job perhaps to tell the head coach, if in fact this is his idea, to move a guy who was playing defense 3 years ago in college, move him from right tackle to right guard to left guard, and move him back to right tackle and so forth? Yeah, poor Rashard Coward, how can he start to play well when he's got to remember how to play the right side, how to play the left side, how to play inside, how to play outside? That just is, you're just not helping a guy who played defense throughout his college days. Is just not right. And Rashard, who was a guest on our show here at the Bar Room, said that he didn't even start playing football until late in high school. So it's not like he's got all of this experience going back years and years and years like so many football players do. All right, guys, it is time now to start addressing some of the possible solutions for what is going on in the offensive line. You guys have been hard at work. The way we do this here on Draft on Tap is that during the week, Neil and Danny, they sit down and they haggle out where they should place prospective players in what round, so that if we're drafting 10th in the first round and one of these players that they've identified as first round picks is there, then they should be considered as the potential draft pick. Same thing in the second round, third round, and so forth and so on. This is the board that they've come up with. And I can't wait till we get to round 2, because I understand that there were some voices raised and discussion about where these guys should be placed. But let's start at round 1, and we'll start with the kid from Oregon. Danny, why don't you tell us about Penei Sewell? Did I get that right?
Penei Sewell, yep. Highly touted high school prospect out of Utah. This is a kid that chose Oregon over the who's who of college football programs. Teams like Alabama, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. Every big time program wanted this kid. This guy came in as a freshman, started 7 games, missed the final 6 due to injury. 2019, his first full year as a starter, as a true sophomore, won the Outland Trophy, which is given to the best college football interior offensive line or lineman in general. Unanimous first team All-American, all Pac-12 co-offensive player of the year. When was the last time an offensive lineman was an offensive player of the year? Started 13 or 14 games last year, did not allow a sack. As a matter of fact, has only given up just one sack over 1,300 snaps in his first 2 seasons. So when you put on his tape, I mean, this guy's got the size, 6'5", 320 pounds. He's an athletic offensive tackle with solid arm length. He's a natural bender who has those quick, active hands with a solid grip and punch. He plays a good base, balance, and body control. He's got that hip explosion, so you see his athletic ability, the way he snaps out of his stance and fires into the next level of the defense. In terms of as a run blocker, good hand placement, where he extends, he latches onto a defender, sealing him off and creating those running lanes. He keeps his legs driving to move defenders off their spots. Like I mentioned earlier, he's quick to the second level on those run fits. He can flip his hips and he can maneuver laterally and maintain his blocks. So he's a guy, if you're running a zone scheme, he's a guy that can maintain those blocks moving east and west, not necessarily just a guy that's going to be a power guy going north and south. Athletic blocker, again, able to reach those inside defensive linemen to be able to seal them off and wash them away inside. In terms of pass protection, does a solid job of maintaining himself between a defender and a quarterback. He engages quickly. Post snap, we talked about him firing out of his stance. He engages quickly in pass protection, flexible and light on his feet. He gets into a good blocking posture, bends his knees, sits in his stance. He can shuffle, slide, and mirror in pass protection. So in terms of everything you're looking for in an offensive lineman, a guy with size, a guy with athletic ability, a guy that can move guys off the line of scrimmage, Sewell has got all those intangibles.
Hell, I just wish he was playing this year. Sitting out 2020, I think I've well established, my viewpoints on guys that sit out. But I mean, when you have guys that are so absurdly athletically, physically gifted, they can go ahead and sit out, and they're probably going to be taken just as high as they would have if they're going to play. Just selfishly, I just want to see him play some more. To be honest with you, but I mean, you talk about this dude. I mean, Danny rattled off all the accolades, all the stats, all the things. Top graded offensive line in the nation and in PFF history, Pro Football Focus history. First player in Oregon history win the Aldo, and go on and on and on. He's got all the physical and athletic attributes, quickness, speed, agility. I mean, he's legitimately the definition of what I call big athletic dudes, dancing bears, exceptional lower and upper power. I love that he loves playing the second level. You can see it. He covers downfield, shows great range, loves putting dudes in the dirt. Like this dude has Gata mentality on deck. In the run game, he's got natural mobility in the pass game. There's some things he needs to improve. I think he's a little bit raw, as far as like pass pro goes. He needs to improve his leverage. He has a tendency of playing high at times, and his footwork, keeping his feet constantly moving, maintaining his balance, having a plan, being physical in the pass game. Like he shows all that stuff in the run game. In the pass game, he's just a little bit on the raw side. Maybe needs to grow up a little bit. Maybe he needs to further develop, whatever the case may be. But, he also shows the innate ability to recover, that athletic ability, that just natural athletic ability to be able to recover when it looks like he's getting beat. But all the things that are deficiencies, all things that can be taught, right? These are all things that are coachable. Right. He's a naturally physical dude. And when pass pro becomes a second nature, like it is as a run blocker, this kid's going to be an all around monster. And overall, I mean, you look at where he could possibly fit across the offensive line. You could plug him in. He's a plug and play guy. You can plug him in anywhere across the offensive line you want to, and he's gonna be a contributor. The size, athletic traits, and natural physicality, that's absurdly valuable.
The one thing with him though, that and Neil is right. There are some times like in terms of when he gets beaten to the inside shoulder, he's got a weak interior post leg, he can be vulnerable in that area. So there are areas in his game where he can get better. And that's why we kind of wish he played this year. But he's being touted out there as his next great franchise tackle. I think he's got some improvement to make. So, he's not the next Joe Thomas. He's got the ability and the potential to be a terrific, franchise type left tackle, but he's got some things that you can work on. But again, to Neil's point, these are all things that are coachable. He's got the size, he's got the athletic ability, he's got the feet, he's got everything that you look for in a tackle. There's some things you got to coach around the edges and to make him, dominant, if you will. But definitely, this guy's going to be the first offensive lineman taken, barring any sort of catastrophe or injury or anything like that.
Yeah, sky's the limit on this kid.
Top 10 pick, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think top 10, 15 is where I see him. I mean, he's been heralded and touted as a top 2-3 pick, 5 pick. I don't see him that high. Potential, personally, I see more in that 10-15 range.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right, let's move on to the next guy on the board. And this guy, frankly, I didn't find tons of tape on him, but I did find one highlight that I need to share with you and our listeners or followers, listeners and followers. This will be on audio podcast as well. So let me call this, excuse me a second here as I wrestle through my highlights. Let's get rid of that one and then call this one up. This was a play with the next guy on your guys' board, the kid from Texas who had a touchdown catch, didn't he? You guys want to talk about this?
Yeah, I love big dude touchdowns, man. That's the best. That is the absolute best. Fires me up.
I rumble. He's to
Look at this guy.
He's to the 9. He's to the 5. He's in for a touchdown.
Guys, who threw that perfect pass to him, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Sam Ellinger. All right. So he is the next guy that you guys have identified as a first-round draft pick, and that is Samuel Cosmi. Neil,
Sam Cosmi.
There you go.
Yes. Sam Cosmi from Humble, Texas, which is exactly like how I feel about this kid. You don't hear him talk, you just see him play. He came in this year, 27 games played, 26 starts. We're 7 games in. He's going to end up being about a 40-game starter. Started at both tackle spots in his career. Great size. Like this kid's a prototype as far as the size goes. I love his athletic ability, his flexibility, his dexterity, very smooth feet, strong, tough, physical. And he's one of these dudes. I love dudes that have mean streak, dudes that are nasty, dudes that put guys in the dirt. Penei Sewell has that. Sam Cosmi has that. He can move very well in space too. He's one of the few on this list who is asked to execute the pull and is very smooth and natural doing it. He's got massive strength as well. He'll finish when he has a chance. Love how he looks for work downfield. On his side of the ball, he anchors down, operates with great awareness. He's rarely in bad position or he's beat. Very consistent player. I love this kid. I think he's going to go probably mid first round at worst. I think he's going to continue to see his stock rise, and especially once we get into Senior Bowl week, whatever All-Star game goes to, assuming he goes to the Senior Bowl, guys are gonna be talking extremely high about this kid.
He's a junior, so I don't think he'll be at the Senior Bowl. But
the redshirt junior, I think he's graduating, isn't he? Graduates after this year. Okay, he graduates in December.
Okay. But so we might see him at Senior Bowl. We might see him there. But Neil hit it all. I mean, very good size, 6'6", 300 plus pounds, overall body length you talked about, good athlete with the lower body flexibility. That's why I want to see my tackles, guys that got the flexibility, got the quick feet to be able to shuffle laterally, be able to mirror and pass protection, efficient, fluid mover. He can pull down the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that can maintain his blocks as he's moving east and west laterally. Love the way he climbs and elevates to the next level with ease, to the second and third level of defense. He's a 300 plus pound guy at 6'6", but he moves like we just saw on that highlight. He moves really well for a guy that size. It tells me he's a very good athlete. The other thing I love about him, and a lot of things that Neil rattled off, I already have on my list as well here, but I love the fact that he finishes his blocks. This is a guy, when he given an opportunity to bury a guy in the ground, he will bury a guy in the ground. And I love my offensive linemen, although this, and Neil knows this as well. You give me an offensive lineman that's got a mean streak, a guy that's going to bury guys when he has an opportunity to bury them, take their souls, if you will. I love those guys. And this guy is one of those, and he's athletic. He's got, like I said, the size, prototypical length, and everything you look for in a tackle. And I think another guy we talked about Sewell being a day one plug and play player. This is another kid's going to be a day one plug and play player for some team next year.
Stephen has a great question here. Danny, why don't you handle this? How do scouts determine tackles are better off inside in that tackle position? Is it arm length, footwork, etc.? Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's all the above. It's the size, it's the arm length, it's the foot speed. Can a guy for me, my tackle's got to have at least 33 and a half inch or preferably or longer arms. Anybody short arms than that, typically those are guys that are going to be pushed inside to a guard or probably center. Then I'm looking for athletic ability. Can a guy get out of his stance and be able to kick, slide, or shuffle back to his set point and be able to get there and cut off the angle that the edge rusher has on him? Probably going to be a speed guy, so he's got to be fast and quick out of his stance. Is he flexible? Does he play a good bend? You don't want a guy that bends at his waist. We call those waist benders. You don't want those guys. When you get to the next level of the defense, when you get to the second or third level run fits, does he get there with ease? Or is he a guy that struggles or labors out there? Can he maintain those blocks when he gets out there? So, and that's where you see some of his athletic abilities, ability to move, and again, his feet, his quickness, and all that stuff. So, the first two guys we talked about that's why they're going in the first round. They have all those physical criteria we were looking for, and they have all those athletic ability criteria that we're looking for as well.
Look at what Steven just said about you, Danny. He says if both Cosmi
poking in the ribs, Danny. Poking you in the ribs.
That right there is going to be my dream. You get Cosmi in the first round, and you come back and get Ellinger in the second round. We're set.
That's pretty wild.
I love it. I love that draft right there.
Good job there, Steven, pointing that out. All right, now let's go out to the second round and see who you guys have identified. Now, Jackson Carmen out of Clemson and Alaric Jackson out of Iowa. You guys had a somewhat of a, should I call it heated? Or somebody was pounding on the glass on the desk, saying this guy above that guy. Tell me a little bit what that discussion was like, fellas.
It was just a play. It was both of us pounding the table for our player.
Okay.
We both had differing grades on each player. So, for example, Jackson Carmen is Niel's guy, and not that he's a bad player or anything like that. I had a third round grade on him. Niel thinks he's got second round potential. So. And then for me, it was Alaric Jackson. He's a guy that you and I saw last year, Aldo versus Northwestern. Guy who's been hampered a little bit by injuries, but definitely a guy I think could play left tackle. If not, worst case scenario, he'll be a right tackle for you. So,
all right.
So I'll let Niel go ahead and talk about his boy Jackson Carmen.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely not say it was heated. We're definitely just pounding the table and stuff. But Jackson
talk,
Carmen. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to know what Niel told me happened to him physically when you watch Jackson's Carmen tape. You don't want to know. This is a family show.
Yeah, I don't want to know. That's true.
Come on, Danny. Come on, man.
All right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jackson Carmen.
Jackson Carmen, man. So 2-year starter at Clemson, listed 6'5", 335. Big size. This guy, not necessarily proportioned the way that I want it to be. But as far as his athletic, tangibles, he keeps good base, moves his feet well. I think he's got a lot of good juice in his step, right? He shows a lot of violence in his hands. He's got the Gata mentality. And for guys that don't know what Gata is, get after that ass mentality, right? Guys that finish, guys that have mean streak, guys that are nasty, guys that are physical, guys that are violent, right?
That's what we call Aldo in the bars, by the way. Gata.
But hey, I love this guy covering downfield. He looks for work. He can function in space. He wants to put guys in the dirt. The two games that I really watched in this kid that really got me excited was the Miami game and the Notre Dame game, the two best competition he faced all year. You go to the first play against Miami, booking it downfield. There's a long explosion play, first play from scrimmage. Crushing a DB, later on smacking Roche around, who we talked about as far as edge rushers went a couple weeks ago, smacking Roche around, slamming him down with one hand late in the third, took Roche off a double team, blocked him into the dirt. The guy takes stuff personal. If you get after his ass or if you beat him, he's going to take stuff personal and he's going to hold it against you the rest of the game. Against ND, pushing upfield, knocking guys down at the second level, looking for work downfield covering. He's got the mean streak and nasty. That's just really what it boils down to with the athleticism and mean streak and nasty and size. He attacks the rushers instead of letting them into him. When he gets off the ball, he's a guy that's going into and trying to attack the rusher first. And I love that. You don't see that all the time from some of these guys on this list. Making the first contact opponent at POA. I also like his football intelligence. He shows good awareness. He communicates with Trevor pre-snap. Can pick up on blitzes and stunts, can redirect and drop. I think he just needs to be better with his hands, more consistent in technique as the game goes late, which I think is probably more of a conditioning issue. The first thing I talked about was body type wise, not necessarily proportioned the way I want him to. I think if he restructures his body comp, shows up at pro day, shows up at not senior day, but they will combine in the neighborhood of 315, 320, at worst 325, you're going to see a dude that takes a lot of pride and is serious about playing the position, serious about the league. And that's going to be a big selling point. But I think this kid, 15 pounds lighter, can be a monster. And, I think really honestly, we talk about Jackson Carmen. I'm going to talk about Alaric Jackson in a lot of the same vein too. I think a big part of evaluating the offensive line position is being able to get these guys on the hoof, right? Being able to body type them, being able to see how they bend, being able to watch them run through bags, going through one-on-one pass pro. I think those are pretty critical things that, a normal scout would have seen by now, being able to have in his notes, being able to, check boxes or not check boxes, whatever the case may be. Having seen this kid on the hoof would probably alleviate a lot of the things that me and Danny kind of not really argued about, but we had, questions about last night between these two guys. But, hopefully, the three of us will be able to get down to Mobile in January. We'll be able to tell you guys more about what we see on a lot of these guys on this list as far as that's concerned.
Danny, what is it about Jackson that has that caused you to rate him below Alaric?
For me, with Jackson and things that Niel hit on are spot on in terms of his positives. I mean, it's fun watching this guy get out in front of runners as a lead blocker in the open field. I mean, he looks to hurt guys. I mean, he literally looks to hurt second and third level defenders. So that's fun watching him. He plays with that mean streak. He's got a nasty temperament. I love that about him. My concern with me is, like Niel mentioned, he's sloppy. He's got a sloppy body. He's listed at 335 on Clemson's website. Typically, they list those guys a little bit, yeah. No, so I think he's probably 340, 345. I mean, he just looks sloppy. So I have my concerns in terms of him being able to man the left side of the offensive line. I think if anything, he's probably going to be a right tackle. And for a right tackle, usually like my comp firm was, they're a little bit different body type, but Orlando Brown, the kid from Oklahoma, a couple years ago, went in the third round to the Ravens. He was playing left tackle at Oklahoma, and I saw his body type. I'm like, this guy is not a left tackle in the NFL. He's Brown is 6'8", but he's also about 335 in that 340 range. So Jackson's about 6'4". But again, I think it's the same body type. I think this is a guy that's going to probably be better off on the right side. So right tackles for me, unless they're spectacular athletes and just dominating guys, I don't put them usually that high, like in the first or second round. I usually go third round with those guys. So that's why I had him in the third round. Not that he's a bad player or anything like that, but that's the way I graded him. But definitely, if you put this guy on the Bears next year, for example, you put him at a right tackle. I think this is a guy that's going to be able to push guys off the line of scrimmage. Big guy. But he's got that pretty good burst in terms of, getting from, that short area quickness, short area burst to be able to get from the 1 to 10 yards, So this guy's going to get downfield, get in front of running backs, be a lead blocker, and just, lay guys out in that second and third level of defense. So, but for me, he's not a left tackle at the next level. I just don't think he can, make it there because of his body composition that we talked about earlier.
Very good. All right. Danny, we'll stay with you and talk about the kid from Iowa.
Yeah, this is the kid, Alaric Jackson. It was a guy that I thought was going to come out last year. He's a guy that, has a basketball background in terms of when he was in high school. Actually, he played basketball, soccer, baseball, and track. So this is a very athletic kid. He was right there with his teammate, Tristan Wirfs, last year in terms of, some of the top tackles in the country, and obviously he stayed, and Wirfs came out. Wirfs was the 14th overall selection by the Buccaneers, and he's actually probably, if you ask anybody else, he's probably the best rookie tackle in the league this year. So with him, and we saw him last year, like I said, Aldo at live up front, versus Northwestern, and very good size, experienced 4-year starter. This guy started as a freshman. He possesses that thick, sturdy frame and length. He's well coached. Obviously, we know Iowa has a tradition of producing very well coached, offensive linemen at the next level. So, in terms of his run blocker, for me, he's a very good run blocker. He's explosive on contact. He generates power at the point of contact. He rolls those hips. He moves defenders off their spot. He's what I call an off-the-screen run blocker. He'll block his guy literally off your screen. He's solid at pulling and locating his defender on the move. Just quick off the snap to be able to chip and release to the second level, completing those dual blocks on a regular basis. He maintains those second level blocks by continuing to drive his legs, to use his length and his hand placement to be able to turn and steer defenders. For me, he's just a sound run blocking technician. I think he's probably a better run blocker than he is as in pass protection. But going over to pass protection, this guy displays solid feet balance and body control. He gets positioning and he sustains it between the defender and the quarterback. He's got strong and active hands to be able to sustain control and steer rushers. He can turn edge rushers and steer them and make them go in a direction that they don't want to go. He's smart and he's quick to process post snap. He sniffs out those defensive line games that they do up front. He sees it and he recognizes that extra rush defender, and he plays nicely with his guard to be able to pass off his guy and pick up the free charging defender. So, for me, he's played left tackle and right tackle. He's a guy that I would start off at left tackle because I think he's got the physical attributes to play there. Worst case scenario, if he doesn't succeed at left tackle, you can flip him over to the right side and you have yourself a 10-year starter at right tackle.
Interesting. Niel, anything about Danny's assessment of this player that you disagree with?
Well, I mean, to start, very lean 315. I mean, it listed at 315. Again, we talk about numbers being goose. I think Iowa has historically done a decent job of being, remotely honest about their numbers. But he's a very lean 315. Like you would guess he's probably around 300 just looking at him, on the TV copy. But and that tells me that he's got a lot of room to grow, to add strength, to add power, to add mass, and he's got lots of length. I think he's fluid in movement, quick feet and hands, can redirect effortlessly. I think his big value here, and that Danny touched on, is his athletic ability. I think he's the most twitched up offensive tackle in his class. And normally, twitched up isn't a term that you use with offensive linemen, but this kid, he's got the fibers. He's another example too of why in-person scouting is so important. Body types bend. To me, I oddly question his knee flexibility just because he doesn't necessarily bend there in his stance or, in pass pro technique. As a result, he kind of plays high to me. Now, is it flexibility? Is it just the way that he's taught to play the position? I'm not really sure, but I think it kind of plays into, just in my opinion, I don't see as much physicality and aggressiveness as I would see in some of these other guys. I in fact wish I saw a little bit more of that. In the 3 games I really watched this year of him was against Sparty, was against Northwestern, the Fighting Fitzes and Minnesota. I didn't necessarily see him being consistently aggressive, consistently physical. I don't really see mean streaking the kid, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's plenty of kids I was around in Mississippi State that didn't have mean streaking, and they've had decent careers in the NFL. Some of them have been rock stars, but this kid will get in position with minimal effort and movement, and his inertia will create movement against defenders. I love how he runs. I love the effort he puts in. I don't necessarily think he can manhandle someone. However, athletic ability wins him battles where he wouldn't otherwise win, and he must improve his functional strength to me and his aggressiveness at the next level, especially in finishing blocks.
All right, let's move on, gentlemen. You've addressed 2 players in round 3. Dylan Radnans. Did I get that right?
Radens.
Yep. From North Dakota State, and Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. Niel, I'll still stay with you. Which of these 2 players would you like to talk about?
I could go with Dylan. That's fine. I love Dylan, man. He's listed 6'6", 299 on North Dakota State's website. 5th-year senior, would have had well over 40 starts if not for the whole COVID thing, and what the FCS did with their scheduling. As it is, he's sitting at 32 starts, which, I mean, hell, that's a lot of football played for the young man. He was also, I think,
consecutive starts.
Do I know?
Consecutive starts, so he's durable.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Also, the first one in the bowl for the Senior Bowl. First invite, first commitment for the Senior Bowl. So that tells you a lot about what other people outside of us, think about this kid, especially if in NFL circles. I think that's going to be massive for this kid's evaluation. He's going to have a chance to separate himself and elevate himself, showing up and showing out against the best competition in college football. In 682 snaps in 2019, had 63 knockdowns, 0 sacks allowed. He's another one of those dudes, kind of like Sam Cosmi. He's got that prototypical NFL offensive tackle frame and length. He's a starting left tackle. He's also started at right tackle. He plays with a great base. He's able to get depth with quick feet. He's able to establish his hands, control defenders. I think he's extremely technically sound, and he covers so much ground with those long lowers that he has. And along the same vein as some of these other guys, talking about Panay, talking about Sam, I love his hustle. I love his effort. In the national title game last year, Trey Lance breaks loose. Radens is hauling ass downfield looking for work. He sprung Lance for a few extra yards, cleaning up the garbage on a long run early in the third a couple weeks ago against Central Arkansas. I think he's got some athletic limitations, but he's tough. He's physical. He's got great technique. He's clearly worked hard on his craft this offseason, where you could see a clear development and clear tendencies of improvement from last season to this season. I know it's only one game, but it's still, you can see the differences. But again, Senior Bowl week is going to be massive for his draft stock in January. I think he can easily leapfrog into one of these top 4 guys, if not top 3, maybe become a second round, possibly a late first round guy.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, all the positives that Neil read off here in terms of this guy is what I have as well. The one thing is, in high school, he was a two-way player in high school. He played offense and defense, and he was also all conference in basketball, a 3-year starter too. So he's got those athletic ability. We talked about him being able to move, on his feet and being a guy that can carry his weight well. The negatives for me and my concern, obviously, it's the level of competition. He's going to be taking a major step up at the level of competition, and Senior Bowl is going to be a nice place for him to go ahead and display some of his ability and skill set. So for me, he's not overly athletic, and Neil touched on it a little bit there. I see some little bit of stiffness in his lower body. He can struggle reaching and sustaining his next level blocks for me, due to maybe some of that inability to be able to match up with quick, quick direction changing players. Guys are more athletic, faster than him. Those are some of the concerns I have about him. But in terms of toughness, in terms of the guy that can pass protect and get to a set point quickly, he shows all those things as well. So the level of competition and some athletic limitations are mainly my main concerns with him.
Let us now move on to the next round. You've identified Liam Eichenberg. So Notre Dame. So Danny, will stay with you right there.
Yeah, this is a kid that the more I watched, the more I liked. To be honest with you, comes into this season as a 3-year starter for a left tackle for Notre Dame. Did not give up a sack last year. Has only allowed 3 sacks in over 1,700 snaps. In those 3 seasons. So he's a guy that's got the size, man. He's 6'6", 305 pounds. He's got the arm length NFL teams look for. He's well put together. He's got a solid physique and a solid frame. And I think he might have some more space to add a little bit more weight, but not that much. He's almost maxed out though. But this guy's a highly competitive, well-coached offensive tackle. And that's I don't know off the top of my head who the coach is at Notre Dame, the offensive line coach, but he's doing a heck of a job, because there's another guy on this list that you watch, and these guys are well coached and they're competitive. In terms of a run blocker, he engages with urgency. Right, he helps reestablish that line of scrimmage in the run game by, again, rolling his hips, driving his feet, getting defenders to move back on their heels. Can drive block and widen that hole and seal those running lanes for a running back. Uses his length and size to be able to pin and wash those edge defenders away from the play. I love the way he uses his hands. He might be one of the better technicians in this draft in terms of from the tackle position. He has heavy hands. He fires them off quickly into the chest of the defender, and he jars them back. So you see some power in his hands. He's a guy who's got a strong grip, be able to control, contour, and turn linemen outside in. Again, pass pro, I think he's technician there. Good enough feet to be able to slide and mirror, keep his shoulders square to a defender, sets a wide base that's balanced, with good knee bend, and has his hands in a ready to strike position. I love the way he plays with alertness and awareness in pass pro as well. He's cognizant of any stunts, and he blitzes. Another guy that works well with his guard to be able to pass off that free rusher, pass off his guy and pick up the free rusher. So I like the way he's got a stout base to anchor. He extends his arms, sets wide, arches his back, and forms that bridge to be able to stop a bull rush. So a lot of things I like about this guy. Some of the things that concern me, lacks the elite left tackle movement skills. Not a twitchy athlete. Has some stiffness in his lower body, does not react well, again, to sudden change of direction. Again, similar to Rednance, where when he gets to that next level, those quicker, faster defenders can slip his blocks or run around him. So those are some of the things that kind of worried me. When I first saw him, I thought of Mike Mcclinchy, his teammate, or former Notre Dame left tackle from a couple of years ago, which went, I believe, 9th overall to the 49ers. He played left tackle for Notre Dame, but then he was moved over to right tackle and has been a solid performer there for the 49ers all these years. So that's similar thing here with me with this kid. I think he plays left tackle right now, but I think his future at the next level is going to be at right tackle.
Jay, by the way, identified Jeff Quinn as the offensive line coach over at Notre Dame. Okay. Thank you, Jay. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I remember a couple days ago when you texted me, Danny. Liam Eichenberg reminds you of Mike Mcclinchy, and I thought to myself, "Damn, man, get out of my head." Seriously. Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page with that, like 100%. Because the minute that I turned off Liam Eichenberg, I watched 3 games on him this year. I watched Clemson, watched Miami, and I think it was Pittsburgh. I mean, let's be honest, I watch every game live, anyways. But the minute I actually like turned off the tape and actually got out of evaluation mode, I turned on Mike Mcclinchy and did like a compare contrast like type of deal. But Danny, I mean, you hit on all of it. We see eye to eye on this kid 100%. The thing I really like about this kid is again, his frame. He's got some prototypical size. He has the ability to probably add a little bit on. Tough, mean, aggressive dude. That's sort of a thing with me. As I've said, tough, mean, aggressive, physical dudes. He's got quick feet, very well coached, great hands. I think sometimes his aggressiveness might cause him to lunge, get off balance. He's got to keep it in check a little bit, but he shows great effort, blocks downfield. We'd like to see him finish a little bit more often, but I love his mentality. He's highly productive. I mean, he's from a football high school too. I mean, football is in his blood. It's his pedigree. From Cleveland, Ohio, St. Ignatius High School. That high school just lives, breathes, eats football. So, I mean, I would be more than happy to have this kid if we happen to fall into him in the 3rd round or really anywhere he ends up.
I've heard the word that this guy could be a fast riser. He could end up being a top 2nd round pick. Highly unlikely he'll be a 1st rounder, but he could be a top 2nd round pick, right?
And he just got accepted. He accepted his invite to the Senior Bowl, so he's going to be down there in Mobile as well this year.
That'll be
100%. There's mock drafts out there floating around. There's talk about this kid being taken mid-1st round. I mean, I don't know how credible some of these sources are, but I mean, to be honest, I mean, the talk is at least out there. It's at least being discussed.
Well, we'll ask Jim Nagy, the head of the Senior Bowl, when he joins us in just a few weeks. He has agreed to be a guest on Draft on Tap, so we can't wait to interview Mr. Nagy. He's got all the inside information. He can tell us of who has accepted invites to the Senior Bowl and what he is seeing in some of these young prospects. And so we'll definitely be talking about Eichenberg from Notre Dame. All right, let's go to the 4th round of your guys' picks. We've got Jalen Mayfield from Michigan and Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. Danny, why don't you start us off with any one of these 2 players?
Yeah, Mayfield was a kid that, honestly, going into watching his tape, I expected a better showing. But just, going back into his background, another kid that, high school was a basketball player. So we're talking about a kid that's athletic enough to be able to, be a solid basketball player, 2-year starter, here, from Michigan. Solid athlete with, average NFL size. He's about 6'4", 315 pounds. He's quick out of his stance and he's mobile, be able to lead and pull. In terms of, run blocking, this guy can, flip his hips into the gap, seal off the backside defender, show solid quickness and foot speed to be able to reach that 2nd level. Will extend and wash out those 2nd level run fits. He's functional in terms of pass blocking. He's got functional movement skills to be able to shadow and mirror. Sets quick, with a wide base and squared shoulders. Strong enough to hold a charge and athletic enough to, play on his feet and keep battling. The unfortunate thing is he's not a twitchy or athletic enough for me to play left tackle. And at the next level, I think he might be best suited to be inside a guard. That's how I see him. I think we put him out on the island. I think he's gonna struggle whether it's a left side or a right side. He lacks that knockback power at the point of contact, which I expected to see from him. Hands are inconsistent. You see him, catching defenders a lot of times. What that does is that draws the defender into his body, into his chest, which then gets his, his back up. He's playing straight up, and he's getting bullied back into the backfield. So I want to see him be able to get consistent with his hands, be able to fire off, control that chest plate of a defender, and be able to contour and move that guy the way he wants to move him. So for me, I think athletically, he's not going to be able to withstand the edge rushers on either side, if you want right or left side, at the next level. And I think he's a guy that's going to be his future is going to be kicked inside the guard. So that's why I dropped him a little bit here on our board.
Yeah, I think that he's in a good spot. I think 4th round is appropriate for him. He's a guy that he starts at right tackle for Michigan. He's got 15 starts. He hasn't played since week 2. He suffered a high ankle sprain at Sparty. Really, both legs were affected. It was really kind of a scary deal. It was possible he could have really had something even more serious happen to him than just a high ankle sprain. And both legs were affected, like I said. So, I mean, he hasn't played since. But, in the 2 games he's playing this year, he shows productivity in the run game. He can finish blocks. I think he needs improvement. He's not overpowering, but he can move defenders. He has strength, but he's not nasty. It's a lot of he can do this, but he's not great at this. And there's things that I like, but there's not great things. There's a lot of give and take with this kid. What I do like that he can move to the next level and at the perimeter. And, he can improve, his covering downfield, taking angles. I think he is better in the run game than he is the pass game, which would, promote the idea of him moving inside. He's improving the technique, obviously. I'm concerned about his anchor and functional strength, lacking elite foot speed on the edge. But, I mean, he's quick enough to stay with rushers. At times he struggles to stay with blocks. He can get off balance, gets blown up on bull rushes. I mean, the functional strength thing is the biggest thing with this kid. He's probably another guy that also needs to kind of restructure his body composition, to be honest with you. He probably needs to, lose a few pounds and gain some mass here and there, upper body strength, all those types of things, work on his lowers. Overall, I do like his athletic ability for a big dude. He could be a candidate to move inside like we talked about. The thing that I'm really impressed by him is that he was one of those guys that was going to opt out, decided to play. I give him a hell of a lot of credit, just really kind of, trying to put some good film on, and just unfortunately he had the injury. I haven't heard anything about him sitting out the rest of the year. I hope he's going to blow up and get healthy and come back to finish out the rest of the year. And, hopefully he's going to be another one of these guys that, if he does decide to come out, he's only redshirt sophomore now. If he does decide to come out, hopefully he has a good showing at the combine, and, we can really get a good look at him up against some real, explosive pass rushers.
Niel, we'll stay with you, and why don't you talk to us about Alex Leatherwood from Alabama?
Sure, Alex Leatherwood, highly, highly productive. Listed 6'6", 312 on Bama's website. He's a senior from Pensacola. He will have started well over 40 games by the end of his Bama career. Solid build, gets great extension with his arms, and they look long. They look, the prototype length that you need. I think he plays a decent pad level, great base. He has smooth lateral agility. I think he lacks power and explosion, though. He lacks quickness and a reactionary athleticism. He too often can't stay on blocks. And at times it's because he stops his feet. At others, it's because he gets beat by much quicker athletic dudes. I don't see him functioning at the second level, and it's probably because of his athletic ability. And I often, way too often see him on the ground. I have a hard time finding instances of him finishing guys off. I see him bow up though. But it takes him a lot to put a guy in the dirt. So I mean, he's a competitive kid in that vein. Personally, like a lot of the games I watched this year, it wasn't overly impressive. I felt he got his ass kicked in the UT game. But overall, very productive. He rarely gives up sacks or pressures. He just gets himself in good position. Like I say, he's a very technically sound kid. Limited athletically, but as far as technique goes, he operates at a high level, both at guard and at tackle over the course of his career at Alabama. I think he most likely finds himself at a right tackle spot if he stays outside. But this guy, he must get stronger. He must develop more of an anchor for me to really feel comfortable with him out protecting, my quarterback on the edge.
Danny, tell me your thoughts on Leatherwood.
Yeah, this is a kid that first of all, is very durable. He's made 34 consecutive starts at Alabama dating back to 2018. He's a guy that's got some position versatility. He started at both right guard and left tackle. So he's a guy that come in and give you some options in terms of, if you want to move him inside or you keep him at tackle. I agree with Niel in terms of, I think I see him probably better suited as a right tackle. I talked about his size, good size with exceptional body length and body control. Some of the same things that Niel was talking about. I like the way that for me, at least, he does show me the ability to be able to roll his hips and drive those defenders off that ball, being able to reestablish a line of scrimmage. He doesn't, and in goal line situations, you can see him, wash defenders down the line. So pass pro, he's efficient in terms of footwork. He can get there with his kick slide. He's athletic enough, if you want to call it that way, to recover when he's outmaneuvered. But in terms of some of the negatives that he talked about, I too have, he's not smooth or efficient mover in space, change of direction issues, when needing to adjust and contour to quicker defenders at that second and third levels, he struggles with that. Has to improve, in terms of anticipating angles and maintaining those lower pad, levels to be able to contain or maintain those blocks at the next level. Talked about here, could be more consistent sustaining those blocks both at the first level and second level. We just saw a couple of those clips there. He got engaged with the defender, but it was kind of rather easily kind of just shed, and the defender was flying down the line of scrimmage trying to make a play. So things like that. But he's got the physical skill set. He's got the tools. That's why I texted Neil. I'm like, man, this guy, I'm all over the board with this guy, because there's some plays where you're like, all right, this guy's got a real good chance. That's why he's like what? Why am I even watching this guy? But highly touted kid. Definitely comes faces top level competition in the SEC. So got to give him some props for that. Does show the ability to get the job done, but just it's not consistent. And there's things where it's probably going to drop him down into this into this kind of range, if you will, in the actual draft. And I think but I think his athletic ability, and I think his ability to play multiple positions is going to save him. And I think he's going to be a guy who's going to come in and give teams options, whether they want to put him at right tackle, inside a guard, or whatnot.
All right, good stuff, gentlemen. We move on now and identify your 2 fifth-round prospects, Myron Cunningham from Arkansas and Robert Hainsey from Notre Dame. Danny, why don't you start? Pick one of those 2 players to evaluate for us.
Yeah, Myron Cunningham actually started his career here at Western Illinois, but did not make an appearance. Ended up spending 2018 at Iowa Central Community College. And then last year was his first year with Arkansas. Started 10, 11 games. Another kid that's played multiple positions. He started at right guard and then moved to left tackle this season. So a guy that's got that size at 6'6", 320 with those long arms, has a thick frame with quick feet, quickness out of his stance, at the snap. A guy who plays with solid knee bend, and good balance in terms of showing some body control. Athletic enough to be able to chip and work up a level, or pull as a to lead a running back through the hole. So he's got that athletic ability, and when it comes to his run blocking, uses his hands well to be able to control and pin defenders inside. Uses that size and length to be able to out leverage defenders by leaning on them and just washing him out of the play. So he uses his size and his body weight to be able to get on a defender and get him out of the way in terms of run blocking. For pass pro, for me, it's he maintains solid positioning. He displays the ability to be able to slide, shuffle, and seal off defenders. Shows some alertness and recognizes unblocked defenders. Goes ahead and passes them off and picks up that blitzer. But he's always left me wanting more in terms. I always felt like he could do better in terms of being a consistent pass blocker. So another guy that has got that. Was right guard. Now he's playing left tackle. Is he being me play out of position outside on the island? That's kind of what I'm thinking here. Another guy that probably could be kicked inside, or maybe you move to right tackle. So we'll see. But definitely he's got the size, the length, and the athletic ability you look for in these type of prospects. So that's why we kind of dropped him down the board here, because I'm not sure what's best for him. It's probably not left tackle. In my opinion, I don't know how Neil feels about him, but for me, NFL, he's not left tackle material. He's either going to be inside a guard or right tackle.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's nothing that really sticks out about this kid that really gets you geeked up. He's a guy that obviously he's well built. He's got a great frame. He's listed as 6'7", 325. He's a redshirt senior. So I mean he's going to be a 2-year starter in an SEC school. Allowed 1 sack and 383 pass pro snaps last year. Having a good year this year, but. He's not a big finisher, but, he's got solid technique. I think he latches on strong. He's not a nasty, mean street guy, but he sticks to his man. He shows good awareness. He executes blocking schemes. He can run, I think, pretty well, although with athletic traits that I don't think are particularly special. He can be a plotter at times, but he's not Jermaine Ifedi. He sometimes gets beat outside, but he's shown to be, he has shown to be slow off the ball. But the production with this kid doesn't lie. I mean, he's rising up draft boards as we speak, and I'm really interested to watch how he really progresses as the year goes forward. And he's a guy that really kind of came on my radar late, even though I've watched a few Arkansas games. He didn't jump off the screen necessarily, but the more you really dive into the film and really watch snap after snap, you watch some end zone copy, you watch. You rewind and go back and watch him one-on-one against guys. I mean, he's a really, really interesting kid that is really worth paying attention to. That really has a big time shot at having a nice career, I think.
All right, Neil, we'll stay with you. Why don't you talk about the kid from Notre Dame?
Yeah, Robert Hainsey, man. I think he's a dark horse of this class. I know, Danny, you're not necessarily too fired up about the kid. I think he's a little bit of the Rodney Dangerfield of this class too. He's not going to get a whole lot of respect, but the kid's a scrappy guy. Listed 6'4", 5'8", 290 on Notre Dame's website. Senior from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hard-nosed kid, blue-collar mentality. He's a team captain. He was the offensive lineman of the year last year at Notre Dame. He's as far as his play history goes, 13 games as a true freshman with one start. He's got 22 starts entering this year and 0 sacks allowed and 423 snaps. We touched on earlier when we were talking about Liam Eichenberg. The offensive line coach at Notre Dame does a great job getting these dudes ready to play, coaching them up, focusing on the little things. I think he's got very quick feet, very quick hands, and those are things that win him battles. You look at the Florida State game, the Pittsburgh game, the Duke game, the guys that play on the edge for those teams that are quote unquote draftable guys. You look at the Miami game against Clemson. Highly productive guys. Especially in Miami, 2 guys that are going to get drafted. He showed up really well in all of those games. I think in only one of those games that you watch, he gave up 1 sack. I don't think he's uniquely strong, powerful, athletic, but I do think, he's a Notre Dame kid, so he's obviously got some intelligence to him. I think he reads well, and I think he's crafty with his angles. I think he's a smart player and he keeps his feet moving. He plays hard and tough. He plays his ass off against really, more athletic players. I think he's got some prick to him. We talk about mean streak, nasty type stuff. I think he's got a lot of prick to him. He'll finish with violent shoves and run downfield cleaning up garbage. He'll take a shot when he can take a shot. I just love how scrappy this kid is. He's got that kind of thing about him. I think he's possibly a guy that moves inside. And, Danny and I were talking about that earlier. I think he's possibly a guy that moves inside. But, watching him against Clemson, he moved bodies. He's got the Gata mentality. He picked up blitzers. That was probably the greatest game of this season, if not his career. I'm kind of fired up about this kid. I think he's got a hell of a future ahead of him. I can't wait to see what he does, when he gets to All-Star game season.
Yeah, I didn't say I didn't like the kid. I just said I don't see him as a tackle in the NFL. I don't like the kid. I see him as a guard, man. Come on. But yeah, I mean, some of the things I like about him is you put his tape on, and again, another well-coached kid. We talked about the Notre Dame, coaching, offensive line coach does a good job of it, but he's competitive, scrappy blocker. He's a guy that doesn't have all the physical, athletic gifts to be able to compete with some of these players that he's going up against. But you know what? He doesn't stop. He's competitive. And like I said, scrappy. He'll play to the whistle. And I love guys like that. There are limitations for him in terms of athletic ability, in my opinion. He's a guy doesn't have the lateral agility. I think speed rushers on the edge are going to stress him out, and I think he's not going to be able to get there and be able to set there and be able to cut off their angle to the quarterback. So that's why I think he's probably better off or better suited to be kicked inside, probably at guard. So that's the only thing. But in terms of the actual player itself, I mean, the kid plays hard, well coached, like I said, competitive, 3-year starter, 2-year team captain. Neil touched on all these things. These are all positives for this kid. So he's going to get in. Well, in these meetings, and he's gonna knock the socks off of these offensive line coaches and these head coaches, and he's gonna get drafted. My only question is, I don't think he plays outside. I think he's gonna be kicked inside to guard. Kind of similar to like Alex Bars last year, with the Bears 2 years ago. Bears picked him up as an undrafted free agent. He was a tackle all his career at Notre Dame. Kicked him inside the guard, and I think that's something where Hainsley's gonna be at.
All right, the kid from Stanford, Walker Little, big guy. Danny, why don't we stay with you and give us your evaluation of this guy?
Yeah, I'm real disappointed in this kid. And the only reason why is because last year, if you guys recall, he got hurt in that first game against Northwestern. I believe it was a torn ACL, and he was out for the year. And then this year comes in and he goes ahead and he opts out, right? And initially we're like, all right, Pac-12 cancels the season. He's getting ready for the draft, whatnot. But the Pac-12 came back, and there are other players that they came back and opted back in. We talked about Jalen Mayfield. We talked about some other kids that have opted back in. This is a kid for me that needed to go out there and put some more tape. The last time we saw him play was 3 years ago in 2018. So I don't understand why he decided to opt out, and I was kind of disappointed in him. But in terms of size, he's about 6'6", 315, 320 pounds. He's got the prototypical size. Solid arm length. Looks to have the athletic ability to be able to shuffle, get plays a nice good knee bend and be able to mirror and pass pro. So I got a lot of questions for me about this kid. I haven't seen this kid since 2018. Put any games on tape. I'm not going to waste a first or second day pick on him. So he's going to go day 3 in my opinion, and we just ended up putting him here in this spot on the board.
Yeah, I think it falls in 6 nicely because you're talking about a skilled guy with a lot of questions. I think that you're going to get past the 5th round, and at that point, it's like who's available? Who could we just go ahead and take take a flyer on? And that's what 6th and 7th round guys are to me. I think that's what he's going to be. I think the decision to not come back this year is going to piss a lot of guys off. Just being frank, the NFL is not going to be happy about it. He hasn't really put good film on since his freshman year. When you really talk about, what is really good evaluational film, his freshman year was his best year, and ever since then, it's just been, he played 3 quarters in 2019. He hadn't played the whole year this year. It's just way too many questions, and a lot of things that are going to have to be figured out once you get into the interview sessions. I have to imagine that this kid is going to get invited to some sort of all-star event, whether it be, one of the games, whether the NFLPA Senior Bowl, or if it is just the combine. He's going to be, in a position to where he's going to have 32 teams sitting him down in a chair, shining the light on him, doing the interrogation, tactics. What is your deal? Why did you sit out? Why haven't you played? They're going to question his competitiveness. They're going to question his toughness, all those types of things. And it's going to be up to him to really, be a tough guy and, bow up and answer those questions, kind of drop a sack a little bit and be a man.
Reminds me a little of Alex Kappa, doesn't he, Danny? We saw him down at the Senior Bowl, the kid from Humboldt who's now with the Tampa Bay Bucks.
I mean, in terms of size and length, yeah. But I mean, in terms of mentality, no. I mean, Alex Kappa was a mean SOB. That guy would block his mother if he had to, So, yeah, but no, I don't know about this kid in terms of that type of mentality, because we haven't seen him play since 2018. So, we got questions on the knee. How's he recovered? In terms of prototypical, what they're looking for in tackles, yeah, he's got the athletic ability, he's got the length, he's got the height. It's just a matter of now how comfortable you feel with the medicals, how comfortable you feel with this kid just sitting out a year where he probably should have played, is in my opinion. So, those are questions that he's gonna have to answer and see what happens. But again, too many questions for me to draft this guy with either a first or second day pick. He's got to be a guy who's going to go, 3rd day for me.
100%.
I'm sure you got a lot of questions on these 2 7th rounders as well, from Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw, and from Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins. Danny, will stay with you. Why don't you tell us about one of these 2 players?
Yeah, Christian Darrisaw from Vatech, a guy who's been a 3-year starter. He started all 32 games he's played at. Solid size. He's about 6'4", 6'5", 310. He's got the very long arms, big hands. He's, another kid that's quick out of his stance. You see that athletic ability immediately post snap. Plays with good knee bend and balance. He's got body control. Plays with a solid base. Again, another athletic offensive lineman that plays well on his feet. So, run blocker. He's efficient. He's a guy that does a nice job of stepping up to the second level and pulling and trapping when he's asked to. Again, quick, athletic enough to be able to flip those hips in the gap and seal off those backside pursuits. Can reach block interior defensive linemen. Again, showing some of that lateral agility that he possesses in his athletic ability, indicating that he's got those quick ability to move side to side. Pass pro, shuffles and kick slides to his set quickly. Sets wide with a balance and bend, and uses his length to be able to help protect his chest, which I do like about that. He fires his arms and he protects his chest that way. Athletic abilities allow him to be able to mirror and pass pro and be solid at maintaining his body between the defender and the quarterback. However, for me, he just plays too soft. He doesn't have the ideal height for an offense tackle. I think he's going to be he's listed at 6'5", but I think he's going to end up coming in at 6'3", 6'4", in that range. But he has long arms. So a lot of times, you can get away with guys in a 6'4" range, but they have, 34, 35 plus inch arm length to play tackle. Athletically, he shows the ability to play tackle. But I just don't understand, there's times where I saw him stop his feet in the middle of a pass protection, just kind of push the defensive end kind of to the side. And that guy just ended up going around and flattening down to the quarterback. So that shows some laziness for me in his game, or I don't know if he's just tired, he's out of shape. So those are the question marks I had about him. I know there's some people like him a lot. I just didn't see much other than his athletic ability and his size and his arm length that really excited me about him.
Yeah, his size is legitimately the only thing that I liked about this kid. Just gonna go ahead and be honest with you. We're talking about a guy that's getting a lot of run right now for whatever reason. I don't really honestly know, because I mean, for my own personal preferences, I talk all the time about how I love guys that are mean, nasty pricks, put guys in the dirt and everything else. This dude has way too many soft, lazy tendencies for my liking. It just turns me off, to be honest with you. But he's a guy that's going to get talked about, so we have to talk about him. I think he's improving. You watch him from game to game, especially from last year to this year. I think he's improving, but I still don't see a dominating presence. I want to see him really get after guys. You spoke on the whole quitting on plays. I see the same thing, man. I see him, and it's not only when he's engaged. It's not only the point of attack. It's when he's on the perimeter. It's when he's downfield. It's when he's at the second level. He'll take plays off. He'll take his foot off the gas. There's lots to like athletically, but he's got a ways to go from a technique and strength standpoint, and just really from a style of play standpoint to really at least make me excited about him.
See, when you see that kind of stuff on tape, it's disturbing, right? When he quits on a play. Now, is he hurt? Is he tired? Is he out of shape? Doesn't have the competitive toughness or the want to? Does he not love the game? Those are the kind of questions I have. Right. And to draft a guy, first or second day, for me, I can't have those questions on the guy. So a lot of these questions will probably be answered once these coaches and these teams get these guys in the room and they interview them and they do the background check. But just looking at his tape, it's a guy that's got the physical skill sets, I believe, to play outside tackle either spot. But those questions really kind of bother me.
Yeah. And we will try to get some of that information from people that we'll be talking to off camera and on camera here on Draft on Tap. Now, your final guy is Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. Take it away, Neil.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude to me. I think he's a guy that could wind up either 6 or 7, beauty in the eye of the beholder like type of deal. But listed at 6'6", 320. He's a redshirt senior from Topeka, Kansas. He's a third-year starter. He's played tackle and guard at Oklahoma State. He's kind of got a build comparable to Mayfield. He's got excellent arm length. I think he bends okay. He can struggle with leverage and balance sometimes, though. I think he's just okay in space. He can look awkward. But when he can get a hold of a defender, he looks to finish. He has nasty. He has mean streak. And you look at the Texas game, he took Osai into the sideline, took out a couple trainers along with him. Not that that's a good thing or anything else, but hey, I mean, you watch the film, and when you continue blocks like this kid continues blocks, sometimes it gets excited. He'll body slam guys, he'll put guys in the dirt. I like the way that this guy bows up to competition. He's the redeeming quality. As a late round guy, I will not hesitate to take toughness and mean streak. But he's a guy that I think he can be a little bit versatile. I think he's a guy that you could look to put inside as well. He's another one of those guys that has played right tackle. He starts at right tackle for Oklahoma State. Not necessarily an offensive scheme that fits well with what the Bears do, but he's a guy that stands out and is worth talking about. He's worth paying attention to going forward. And another one of those guys I would love to go ahead and body type in person and just really see how he bends, how he moves, how he runs bags, goes through agilities and all those types of things.
He's one of 3 Oklahoma State who has accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl, so we'll be talking to Jim Nagy about him. Guys, a fascinating board. Great job doing the research on these guys. There's definitely some talent here, but I want to ask you a question. At what point, if I'm going to ask you, I need to find a starter for next season for the Chicago Bears. At what point? Where's the cutoff? Is it at Liam Eichenberg? Is that at in the 4th round with Leatherwood or Mayfield, or where is it? Let me start with you, Danny. What's your thinking there?
If you're looking for a day 1 starter, I'm thinking round 3 is probably where you cut it off at. But any one of these guys, we talked about Mayfield, we talked about Leatherwood. I think those guys have potential to start at the next level. Cunningham and Hainsey, I think, also have potential. For me, it's just a matter of where they're going to be a guard or tackle. For me, it's probably more so guarded for both of those guys. So if you're looking for a day 1 starter, for me, the cutoff would be round 3. You get one of those first 6 guys. And you have a guy that has a chance to come in and start right away for you.
Yeah, 100% agree. Exactly the same, frame of mind on that. Those top 6 guys, I think that is where the cutoff is. I think there's still some moving to be done amongst those 6 guys to see really where they shake out, to see where their value is as we continue to evaluate them, get them in All-Star week, get them in the combine to, just kind of, check some boxes and dot some T's and cross some I's, so to speak. But I really like a lot of what I see of those first 3 rounds, and I think if we would be very, very happy having any one of those guys. And even if you look at round 4, round 5, with the limited options that we have currently on this team for interior offensive linemen, I would really honestly want to be upset about taking either of those 4 guys either, to be honest with you.
We've got a question here from Steven. Guys, have you done any scouting of any of these 2 players from Minnesota, Daniel Failili or Abraham Lucas from Wazoo?
Yeah, I have. I actually watched the Lucas kid from Wazoo. I think that kid is really interesting, and he was a guy that wasn't really fired up on last year's tape about. But, you talk about prototypical size, listed 6'7", 328. He is a redshirt junior, and he's a local kid from Everett, Washington. Obviously plays in a pass-happy offense. There's going to be limited stuff on him actually being functional in the run game, and I think that's really where he's going to need to develop. But as a pass blocker, he's another one of those guys that has really progressed and developed from last year to this year. I watched I did some extensive, work on the Oregon State game. We talked about the Hamako Rashid kid a couple weeks ago. He was competitive against that kid. I think he's got a shot. And the only reason why I didn't offer to put him on this list was because the Pac-12 has only played 2 games. I want to see a few more games. I want to see more consistency out of him. I want to see, I just want to do more work on him, really, to be honest with you. That's what it comes down to. I just want to do more work on him and really see how far he's progressed from last year to this year. I think he's got a shot. The Daniel Falele kid, he's raw as the sky is blue right now. He's only been playing football for a couple years. He's a rugby player from Australia. He's 6'9", 400 pounds. That's right, 400 pounds.
Oh,
for a 400-pound dude, he's the leanest 400-pound dude in the history of the planet Earth.
He's big bone.
Extremely big bone, right? But he's got that Polynesian build where he's just like naturally big and raw and strong, massive. He moves well, for his size. He's come a long way from where he's been, and he's a work ethic kid all the way. I was really hoping to see a lot more of him this year. I saw a little bit of him last year. Went back and looked at the bowl game. Went back and looked at their bigger matchups last year in the Big Ten. I was really hoping to see him play this year, but he's sitting out 2020 because of COVID. So he's a junior. I'm not sure if he's going to come back. Obviously, we've talked about before at length about how, the NCAA is granting all these guys an extra year of eligibility. So he's going to have eligibility on deck to really go ahead and develop himself, to put himself in position to be taken really high, which I think is a possibility, given his size and his natural athletic ability. Should he come out this year? In my opinion, no. I think he needs to come back for one more year at least and just, show all the things that everybody needs to see on him. But he's definitely a guy to watch out for down the road.
Any thoughts you want to share, Danny?
I have not seen either one of those kids. I've seen bits and pieces of Lucas, but I haven't enough to be able to give you a evaluation like Neil did.
Excellent. Tigger has an interesting question. Have they ever tried Olympic wrestlers on the front line professionally? And so I did a quick check to see if there have ever been any Olympic wrestlers who have made it to the NFL. Well, the last guy was a guy named Jess Lewis. He was a guy who actually wrestled in the Olympics, and he went on to play for the Houston Oilers in 1970. Didn't have much of an NFL career. Back then, the NFL draft was, I think it went to 17 rounds. He was drafted in the 13th round, and he was actually moved from offensive line to linebacker and just played 1 year in the NFL. Prior to that, it was many years before then, there was actually a guy named Bobby Pickens who played for the Chicago Bears, who did some Olympic wrestling as well. You guys have any clue as to why perhaps we don't see Olympic wrestlers try it out on the offensive line?
Well, the only thing I can think of is because of the sheer body size, body weight. I mean, typically offensive linemen are 300 plus pounds, and wrestlers are one of some of the more lean, cut up athletes out there. So it makes sense to in terms of, you would think that wrestlers, because wrestling, and along with offensive line blocking, it's all hand usage, it's leverage, it's being able to to get a guy off balance and all that stuff. So that makes sense how those guys that are wrestlers would do well as offensive line. But I just think the sheer body size, the weight, that to put on all that weight to be able to play offensive line in the NFL is just, I think it's just too much.
Would be cool to be a sumo wrestler, right? An NFL team. Neil, you were going to say?
No, I think there's absolutely a lot of technique that goes into playing that position. But what I do like is my offensive linemen having played one of two sports, basketball or wrestling, as a secondary sport. Mm-hmm. Coming up throughout their athletic career. I think those two sports, specifically, basketball when it comes to like footwork and body and body positioning, wrestling just with like leverage and moving bodies and those types of things. I think those where that comes into play is when those kids have that kind of background. It significantly helps in terms of their development. But when it comes down to playing the offensive line position, like that's a full-time job in and of itself.
Stephen actually recalls that Brock Lesnar tried out for the Minnesota Vikings. I believe he is correct. It was Lesnar.
Is Brock Lesnar or Olympic wrestler though?
No, he's not an Olympic
WWE.
wrestler. WWE. But so there have been some guys from that area in Olympic wrestling and WWE.
Yeah, far. I understand.
Was it like strongman champion of the world, like try out the Jets or something like that at one point?
Yeah,
I feel like I remember
Henry.
that.
Is it something Henry? Is it Mark? I know a wrestler.
It's like miserable failure too, right?
I remember Lesnar trying out, but I never thought he was an Olympic wrestler, so I never brought up his name. But
definitely,
yeah. So
there was back when I was a kid, there was a guy named Dick the Bruiser. He was a wrestler, the fake wrestling kind, and he actually played for the Green Bay Packers for a while. Let's see what Jay's got to say here. Zach Miller was on last night, said he likes Nagy. What do you guys think? He does need more talent or need to be gone? Yeah, it's a great question. What do you guys think? Does Nagy get another chance to coach this Chicago Bears team in 2021? Or you think that he's gone?
Well, unless the Bears lose the next 6 games and go 5-11, Matt Nagy's coming back next year. So my only thing is what does he do to help player development and help get this offense at the next level? Obviously, help fixing the offensive line, what we talked about tonight, is one priority. Also, finding a quarterback that can run a system is another priority. So Nagy's coming back. That's my opinion. And how he proceeds and how successful he is depending on what he does with the offense. And will he keep allow Bill Lazor to continue to call plays from now on, or is he going to take that back? And then if he does, how is he going to get his players in the best position to have best success? We talked about some of those players, those skill position players tonight, where they're not meeting expectations that we and probably Ryan Pace had put on them. And is it a coaching issue where they're not putting them in the right place in terms of the scheme? Is it a developmental issue? I don't think it's a talent. To be honest, I don't think it's a talent issue, because I think Anthony Miller, I think Ridley, I think those guys are talented. I think it's just getting them in the right spot to be able to make those plays and making them successful. Unfortunately, it looks like Nagy has this idea of his offense and he's fitting these pieces into his offense, instead of working his offense around the talent of his players. So I think Nagy as a head coach overall, I think that, these next 6 games are going to tell us if he's actually lost the team or if he still has the command and respect of the team. I think he does, but we'll see. But I think overall as a head coach, I think he's okay. But I think as an offensive play caller and coordinator, he's got to give that up. And I think it's got to be a permanent thing where he gives it up, whether it's Bill Lazor, John DeFilippo, we bring someone else from outside the organization. I definitely think it's time that he gives the reins to somebody else offensively.
He did say that Lazor will be calling the plays in the Bears' next game on December 29th, the Sunday night game against the Green Bay Packers. Neil, what do you think about the question of Nagy continuing on as coach in 2021?
I think he's got one more year. I think that he needs to be given a talented, healthy, keyword healthy, offensive line to be able to block for one of the quarterbacks to be able to function, or a much highly talented quarterback to function in that offense. I think that's really what it breaks down to. Fix maybe some of these depth issues that we have on defense, but I think like offensively, if we're talking about offense being Nagy's baby, we got to fix a couple things. I think there's tons of talent on this offense right now, but I mean, just this offensive line, let's fix the holes, let's fix the problems. And if the quarterbacks aren't good enough, let's go ahead and draft him let's go ahead and give him Zach Wilson, right? Everybody, Zach Wilson on the table.
But the one thing on a quarterback there, Neil, that's a huge question mark that I have going into this season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if Matt Nagy's got one more year left, do you allow him to go and pick and Ryan Pace to go and pick the next quarterback? Because you probably have to draft up and trade up draft capital, or sign a free agent or whatnot, give up big time money. Do you allow him to do that if he's not your coach going forward, right? So say you move up and they get Zach Wilson or whoever, right, one of these quarterbacks, and after 1 year they go 6-10 next year, and he's gone. Now you have and then Ryan Pace is going to be gone too, because he's not going to hire his third head coach. So are you going to then bring in a new GM who says, "Oh, I didn't draft this kid. I have nothing committed." Kind of like what's going on right now with Sam Darnold in New York. They have a coach and GM that didn't draft the kid, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we're not really going to go ahead and give he's not our future if we have a chance to get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or something like that." So that's the thing. Is like they're always. I feel like the Bears are always like 1 or 2 years behind. Instead of just cutting bait and then bringing in a whole new, GM and head coach and a quarterback starting all new. It's always like 1 year behind, right? Trubisky was drafted prior to Nagy getting here, and then Nagy was kind of stuck with Trubisky. It's like they're never to come with a clean slate. Everyone comes in from the get go, and they're all together. They're all tied in one big swoop, if you will. So that's the question. I'm going to see how they attack this offseason in terms of that position specifically.
Yeah, I think that's been a huge problem with the Chicago Bears organization, is the lack of synchronicity, for a better way of
right.
a better word. There, for instance, here's a perfect example. All preseason, you're redesigning the offense so that you're having more plays under center. So Mitch Trubisky is going to be under center, hand off the ball. And we saw in the first 2 games how that helped the running game. So, but you bring in a backup quarterback, or a quarterback, really not a backup quarterback. You bring in a quarterback to compete against Mitch Trubisky, and he's never played under center before. So what are you doing? What do you're making it difficult. It reminds me of when the Chicago Bears drafted Greg Olsen at the tight end position, and then 2 years later they bring in an offensive coordinator who doesn't like pass catching tight ends. Right. He wants another offensive tackle. There's a lack of proper planning. Right. And so Danny brings up a good point. Are you going to bring in a new general manager or a new coach, and then are you just going to give Nagy 1 more year to coach this team and then bring in another coach after you've drafted a quarterback? That would just be so stupid. Right. You either got to make a move now at the end of the season and clean all of Hallis Hall, just sanitize the whole fucking place. Excuse my language. Sanitize the whole place with new decision makers and a new coach, and just rebuild this thing, or you're going to stick with Ryan Pace for the next 3, 4, 5 years, which is, I think, what is going to happen, because the management, the ownership of this team has placed a lot of confidence in Ryan Pace. They made him in charge of that $100 million overhaul at Hallis Hall. They just have shown so much confidence, and they like him so much that I doubt they're going to make a move at the end of this season. If anything, it might be a coaching move, but I doubt Ryan Pace is going anywhere.
So you would allow, or you think they will allow Ryan Pace to hire his third head coach?
I'm afraid that's probably what's going to happen. My speculation is that, and it won't be me, unfortunately.
Yeah, because you're busy being a GM.
That's right. Guys, before I let you go, and I appreciate you guys working OT and doing all the prep work for this, I wanted to get your thoughts on the quarterback position, your college quarterbacks. We had a show that folks can find here on our Bears Barroom channel, the Draft on Tap show, where you guys evaluated quarterbacks, your preliminary evaluations of quarterbacks who you think are going to come out in the 2021 draft and are guys that the Chicago Bears should look at. anything has happened over the last several weeks of college football that has changed your evaluation of these quarterbacks? Let me start with you, Neil.
I think, Mac Jones on a weekly basis has shown that he is, I think he's capable. He has elevated himself week after week. I think he's at a point now where, he's probably a round one consideration. I think he's a solid round 2 pick. I like Kyle Trask still there at 2. Zach Wilson is probably my number 4 guy behind Trey Lance, and only because Trey Lance has just absurd athletic traits that are rare with a cannon for an arm. But I'm just going to be honest, where the Bears are trending right now is where I think Zach Wilson is going to fall, which is why I'm so big on that pick. But not only because it's where he's going to fall, is because he's got all the intangibles, and he's shown some amazing things on film so far this year that he can handle taking over an NFL team. Hopefully, being the Bears and doing some better things that we've seen the past few years from the quarterback position. Sam Ehlinger, I think is a cutoff for me. As far as guys that I would like to see in this offense. I think those are I like a top 7 being Trevor, Justin, Trey, Zach, Matt, Kyle, and Sam. I think those are the 7 guys that I think can function at a high level, at the next level. Jamie Newman, there's just way too many question marks. Sam Ehlinger, I think, presents a really good late day 2 value if that's where we end up taking a quarterback. I'm not going to be upset about Sam Ehlinger, wearing the orange and blue either. But ultimately, I keep pounding the table for Zach. I think he's the guy that really fits. Trey Lance is right in that same mold of a guy that has a high ceiling that sort of fits the mold of what the Bears want, and a guy that has a big arm, that has tons of mobility, and has shown the empirical data of being able to make all the throws and win consistently, and not turn over the ball. And then like I said, Mac Jones just continues to rise. So I think those are 7 guys I feel really good about. Certain guys I feel excellent about, but Danny, I'll go ahead and let you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the way we had it set up on our initial board, and I think 2 guys definitely. I think Mac Jones and Zach Wilson are flying up draft boards. I think Kyle Trask is having GMs scratching their heads. I think there are some questions in terms of his physical limitations with arm strength and immobility back there in the pocket. But I think Mac Jones is for me a guy I would love to get if I'm the Bears. Mm-hmm. If he's a 5th quarterback taken in the first round, and I get him in number 22nd or whatever pick we end up being, I would love to take him. He shows to me he was a guy that I initially had a 2nd round grade on him. And then he's a guy that I wouldn't mind seeing, playing for the Bears. Obviously, Sam Ehlinger we talked about before, but Zach Wilson's a kid that he's getting a lot of hype and a lot of pub, and I think he's a guy. He's shown this year, he's fully recovered from that shoulder problem we had a couple years ago, and kind of had me questioning his arm strength. So he definitely looks terrific, and I think he would be a terrific fit in terms of the Bears system, their philosophy, how Nagy likes to utilize it, and then at this point where my only question mark is he hasn't really played top competition, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil. His toughest team was what, Boise State?
That's his toughest deal so far. Yeah,
right.
He's got San Diego State next month.
That's my only thing is my little kind of give me a little leeway about him. But I mean, in terms of skill set, athletic ability, accuracy, being able to have that ability to change his arm angle, get the ball off real quick, and I think he would be a perfect fit in the system. Mac Jones, size, arm strength, throws a pretty deep ball, smart kid, a guy not as athletic as Zach Wilson, but definitely a guy that can get the ball to his out quickly and out to his playmaker. So I think he's definitely moved up. And the top 2 guys for me, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, are still the top 2 guys. Trey Lance is a guy that we talked about, terrific athlete, a guy that's got some potential, but I think he's not a guy that's going to come in next year and I think compete for a job. I think he's a guy that's going to sit behind a starter for a year, possibly 2, maybe we'll see. And then possibly, play then. So if you're looking for immediate impact, I'm looking at obviously Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, Jones, Ehlinger, and Trask. Trask, to me, he's got me thinking a lot about him because his accuracy downfield is impeccable. I mean, his balls are on the spot, on the money. with pressure, without pressure. But his arm strength, I just don't know how that'll play at a place like Soldier Field where wind could be a factor, inclement weather, whether it's snow, rain could be a factor. How will he be able to fling that ball in those type of conditions? I really have a lot of question marks about his arm strength. And then plus, he's very immobile. We thought Nick Foles was immobile. I think Kyle Trask is right there on par with Nick Foles in terms of immobility back there in the pocket. So those are the question marks I have about Kyle Trask, but he's got great size and he's putting together a terrific season, stat wise. So I think this is going to be a good year to draft a quarterback. So definitely, thank God the Bears have the first round pick back this year. So if they want to address that position, that's going to be an opportunity for them to go ahead and take a look at that.
It's going to be fun to hopefully head over to Senior Bowl. Hopefully it'll be open to us because there's going to be a lot of these quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl. And
one more guy, I'm sorry to interrupt. One more guy that I think has moved up and has played well is Kellen Mond from Texas A&M.
And he's going to be at the Senior Bowl. I was just going to say.
I think he and we've talked about it initially on our show. This guy's got all the size, the speed, the athletic ability, the arm strength. He just never put it together. He was always up and down. He'd make a great throw and then make a boneheaded throw. But I think this year he's a little more consistency to his game. Has he taken that next step? Has he matured? Right? Is he ready for the next step? I think he's a guy that gives you that RPO option. He's athletic. Again, a guy that can tuck it and run and keep it there too. So another guy to keep an eye on. He might have bumped up to maybe third round, maybe second round. We'll see what happens there. But Kellen Mond is another guy that's moving up the boards.
There you go. Ian Book, by the way, I think he's played really well the last 2-3 games and might deserve some mention as a 6th or 7th round look. Somebody who, I've kind of compared him as to Chase Daniel. So I'm sticking to that. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a starting quality NFL quarterback, but he could be somebody that a team could draft and stash as a guy that you can rely on to provide some backup depth. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Ian Book's definitely a guy that's moved up for me. I had him barely on the board when we first talked about quarterbacks, a few weeks ago. Ian Book, he's had the most consistent last month and a half of football that I've ever seen him have. Really, the only bad game he's had so far this year was that Duke game. And you can argue Louisville too, but that was just an odd set of circumstances in my opinion. But you look at the Miami game, and especially this Clemson game where he really stepped up and owned that game. And let's be honest, he won that game in a lot of different ways, along with playmaking on defense and Kyron Williams, the tailback. He delivers some. Ian Book delivers some great balls in that game. And as a leader. He did everything you want a multi-year starter captain to do. He's been impressive the past couple of weeks. I've moved him up, a couple rounds from barely on the draft board to probably a 6th round pick at this point. And conversely, I've taken a couple guys off, but from the bottom moving up, he's the guy that's actually taking a couple steps.
Yeah.
For me, Ian Book, he's had a good season, but he's not an NFL starting quarterback. And what I'm trying to accomplish here, I'm trying to find myself an NFL starting quarterback. I'll worry about a backup when I have a starting quarterback first, and then I'll worry about getting a backup. So for me, he's not. Right. I'm not drafting Ian Book because I need a starting quarterback. That's why.
Yeah, but you gotta also think about depth. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, we're so frustrated with the starting quarterback position in Chicago that I totally understand where you're coming from.
You're drafting a backup instead of getting a starter first. Although,
but you got to also think about your backups. I mean, and
to have a starter, yes, I'll think of a backup.
You have to have 2 good quarterbacks on your roster, and I think. Unfortunately, right now the Chicago Bears have 2 good backup quarterbacks is what they have.
Right.
So, but hopefully, as you guys said at the beginning of the show, Mitchell Trubisky gets a shot here to kind of finish the season off to see what you got, because I still think that there is a slight chance that he can salvage his career in the NFL. Yeah, a slight chance. I'd rather see him.
What do you think we're going to see in 6 games that we haven't seen 2.5 years, Aldo?
Well, there's the possibility that perhaps being behind Nick Foles is that he'll start to see the field better, being on the sidelines for a number of games, that he'll start to, once he gets his opportunity to get back there, he'll start to process things a little bit better, because that's been a huge issue with him. And as you guys mentioned earlier on, if he starts to use his legs better and he gets, a Steve Laser encouraging him to run, hey, after your first and second options are gone, take off, because frankly, you're not good at finding the second or the third. So
exactly,
change things up a little bit and work to his strengths is basically what I'm hoping he will do if he gets another opportunity to quarterback, because we know what Nick Foles is. And particularly we know what Nick Foles is with a rotten offensive line. And we can have a little bit of hope that with a rotten offensive line, that Mitchell Trubisky can create some positive plays with his legs. So that's what my thinking is.
We all know what Nick Foles is, but I feel like I know what Trubisky is as well. And I think he's not an NFL starting quarterback, at least not for this system and not for this team. Another thing you want to think about, you put him in, right? Say final 6 games, they go 4-2, they make the playoffs, they lose in the first round. Now you're going to have people clamoring to re-sign Mitch Trubisky. Do you want to give him $25 million for a 1-year deal to come back and be a starting quarterback? Do you trust him?
No matter what people are clamoring for, you got to make an intelligent decision based on what you see and what's available and factoring all sorts of different things. I would rather they make the playoffs and be in that middle ground than not make the playoffs and players not getting playoff experience. I'd rather win than not win is basically.
But that playoff experience could get Mitch Trubisky a contract extension. That's what scares the heck out of me.
Then perhaps he would deserve it, right, Neil? I mean, if he goes out there and plays well, and he starts to show some progress, then maybe he deserves it. And I'm not saying that I would sign him to a $25 million contract. I don't think anybody would pay him that. I mean, he would have to play lights out over the next several games to even be considering anything over $15 million.
Well, I'm just saying because they're probably not want to give him a long-term contract, because they make sure if he has a hot stretch down the end of the season, that it's not, smoke and mirrors, so they're going to want to franchise him. Franchise tag is about what, 28 million for 1 year?
I don't think they're going to franchise tag any quarterback because of the salary cap issues. And I think they would rather, start over again at that quarterback position and draft one of your guys from the first round.
There's also going to be a lot of young guys that are going to be available, right? If either New York team gets the first pick overall, and they're probably going to go with Trevor Lawrence, right? So is Sam Darnold a guy you guys want? Sam Darnold is a guy I'm not sold on, so I'm not sure how you guys feel about him, but I'm not sold on Sam Darnold. Daniel Jones, is he a guy you guys are interested in looking at? Jimmy Garoppolo might be available this year. Matt Ryan might be available this year. I mean, there's the different avenues we can look at, right?
I prefer to go to the draft route.
I prefer to go to draft route and pick my guy and work him. Yeah. I don't want to get retreads. So
what'd you say, Neil? I missed that.
No, I was just saying I'm not jumping up and down about those two guys either. I think the only one that would be even remotely interesting to bring in would be the Marcus Mariota kid. Mm-hmm. He's out there not taking snaps. At one point, he was really highly regarded. Bring him in, give him a shot. We're bringing in Deshaun Kaiser, who couldn't win in Cleveland, not like anybody can, but he couldn't win in Cleveland. At least give him a shot. As far as guys that have starting quarterback experience, have won a few games.
But I don't think
I'm with you. I want to get a guy in the draft. I don't want retreads.
The way this quarterback class is playing, the way they're progressing, and we just talked about 5 guys in the first round.
Yeah,
give me one of those 5 guys, man. I'll roll with, and then we're talking about Ellinger. We're talking about possibly Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond. Give me one of those guys. Let's roll with those guys, and let's get those guys in a system where we help them get better, and then we let them put them in a position to succeed, not trying to fit them into a system where this is my system. You have to run with my system.
I don't think that we're bringing in Deshaun Kaiser because we think that we have any chance that he's going to be a starting caliber quarterback. I think they're bringing him in because of the injury situation, and you want somebody with NFL experience. What I would like to see, Anthony Gordon, the guy that I fell in love with last season, and Danny and I talked to at the Senior Bowl, he's a free agent out there. the Bears should be bringing him in with the idea that, maybe in 2021, 2022, or 2023, he could develop into a quarterback, because he's got some of those intangibles that you want out of that position. The guy has kind of Patrick Mahomes type intangibles with the way he releases the ball from all sorts of different angles, his ability to find a second and third receiver, but he's about 190 pounds. He's a small kid and so forth. So I can understand why some NFL general managers aren't anxious to give him a shot, but I say, why not? I would rather take a look at an Anthony Gordon than a Deshaun Kaiser in my mind, but I understand why Kaiser is the guy they're bringing in, because he's got NFL experience, and you might be in a position where you don't have a healthy quarterback, and so you've got to have Deshaun Kaiser backing up Tyler Bray.
Right.
So, all right, guys, I think that we have gone way over time, 2 hours and 23 minutes. It's been so much fun talking football with you guys. What we are going to do next is take a look at the guard position, but we may not do that for top 2 shows, because if we get Jim Nagy in for our next show, I would like to just dedicate that show to talking with Jim about all of the key prospects that he likes that have been invited to the Senior Bowl, really get a lot of information from him based on that. So that way we can replenish what we know about some of these players and learn some new things. And then also talk about the state of the Bears at that point of the season. By that time, they would have played the Green Bay Packers and probably another opponent. So we'll plan on that. If Jim pushes us back until later December, then we'll dedicate the show to looking at the offensive guard positions. That sound like a plan?
Awesome.
Sounds like a plan. I'm excited. Can't wait to have it.
Great job, guys, today. Outstanding job. I learned so much, and so I'm so lucky that you guys are working on this project. It's fascinating. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this is real fantasy football. This is where it really counts, because this is about our Chicago Bears, a team that the three of us love. And I want to thank everybody that joined us live. Lots of participation. Stephen, Jay, Christopher, Travis, and so on and so on. Thank you all for participating. Lots of great comments. I wish I would have been able to put them all on, and you had some great questions. So join us again next week. Danny has another thought before we.
I want to say a personal thank you to Stephen for a great suggestion to draft Cosmi in the first round and Ellinger in the second round. I think that's an awesome suggestion.
That might be worth a Draft on Tap T-shirt, right? Stephen, get a hold of me. I'll take care of you.
Hook 'em Danny.
All right. For Danny, Shimon, Neil Stopczynski, I'm Aldo Gandia. We'll see you next time here on Draft on Tap on the Barroom Network.